Good evening, everyone. It is the meeting of the Select Board this evening on Tuesday, March 28th. Welcome to all those that have joined us virtually. Before I ask for community input, I just want to mention that we're changing the agenda a little bit because the second item, the Middlesex County Retirement System discussion has been postponed because the presenter is not able to make it tonight. So we're going to move that to the April 11th Select Board meeting. So just for people that are following the agenda, everything's going to move up one slot. So with that being said, I guess I usually review the agenda first, don't I? All right, so that makes sense. So our first item after community input will be the town meeting recommendations. Then we will discuss the scope of the studies for the fire station and the police station. Again, this is a discussion, and Julie Mercier, our town planner, will be here to lead us with that. I just, did you happen to mention to her that?
Yeah.
Okay, great, because right, thank you. I did mention to the library folks that they were going to be on sooner. And then Aubrey will be giving the town administrator's report. We'll have liaison reports and approval of a set of minutes, and then adjourn. Before we adjourn, we'll see if there's any additional community input. So with that said, I'm wondering if there's anybody virtual that has an interest in making a comment at this point. Would you please either put your video on and raise your hand or use the chat?
Just so the people on the video know, there's nobody in the room here.
Except us. Yes, and Sean, our faithful Minuteman staff person. Okay, well, seeing none, again, you always have an opportunity at the end of the meeting now to offer input as well. So let's move then right into the town meeting recommendations. So if you look on the agenda, so the idea would be that the select board takes a look at the fiscal year 24 budget, which has not changed since we last looked at it. And that is in in our packets on, let's get down to that page. Which is where? All right, it is. Page 5 starts on page 16 of the packet. I don't know if that's helpful to people.
No, I did a separate PDF, so it doesn't.
Okay, sorry. Well, it follows the, so if you look at, so item 3, if you go to the next page, has the FinCom budget memo from Ryan for 320. And then he sent us
Sorry,
an
I'm not
update.
following you. Item 3.
Okay, yeah, if you
Okay,
go
it's this one.
above that a little bit, you'll see his, go up a little further. That was his FinCom report, his report from FinCom for
Right.
the 320 meeting, and then you have hard copy
Yeah.
of the notes based on the FinCom meeting that happened last night.
Okay, so
And,
what is the item 3 though? That you're expecting?
oh, well, that's the way it's listed on the agenda.
Oh, item underneath.
Yeah, sorry, agenda item.
Okay.
Yeah. So, let's look at so what we want to look at, I think, is the budget that is in the packet, because again, it hasn't changed. FY 24 budget, which if you're looking at the packet, it's page 16. Good evening. That has the expense. Yeah, but that's old, from 320, right? Well, anyway, and then if we look at the budget that's on page 16, so that has stayed the same in terms of the bottom line. And the reserve calculations are the same. The free cash, if you look at page 17 in the packet, sorry. This has remained the same. With, just make sure I got that correct. Yes. And what's not in this proposed budget, so if you look at page 18, this is everything we
So
have,
The page 18, could you just tell us what the
oh, the heading is,
heading
it
is,
just
thank you.
says proposed expenses. It follows the
Got it.
reserve calculations, yeah.
Can
Um,
you, maybe, Aubrey, can you remind?
you
us
wanna
what the
put-
Colors are meaning? Yeah, it'd be good to put it up.
That's a
We
good
definitely
idea.
do.
Sure, let me share this with everybody.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Does anyone remember what the color coding? is?
That was one of his, I think that was Ryan's kind of internal coding.
Looks like green is added wages, so that.
Oh, that's right, right.
Just,
These were the note, this,
Yellow is where he moved things, I think, from one place to another. So for instance, the Ripley Capital, which moved, and the facilities thing, budgets that moved. So I think it's just showing where they're this,
Okay.
there's
and so this does not have the, it's got a small amount for the sustainability budget for, which is really the ESC plus the cost of another Earth Day. So it's removed the sustainability position funding. And the Finance Committee last night, continued to support that, having it not part of the operating budget. So one of our decision points tonight is to decide if we agree with this budget, then it stands as is. If we want to follow up on some of the discussion we've had in the last couple of meetings around consulting and staff support for sustainability, then I think we want to confirm tonight that we want to apply for ARPA funding for that and be in if we're in agreement about that and having it not in the operating budget. Currently, it's not in the operating budget. And
not even the 30,000 that we had.
Well, again, that's their recommendation, right? So I think we have three choices, I guess. We can go with what we thought we decided, which is push 30K back into the operating. We can ask ARPA for
whatever amount.
some amount, could be all of it, some of it, half of it, yes. Or we could do, I mean, those are probably.
Those are the two choices, right? And here's my thought on this, which is if we're comfortable asking for ARPA funds, then rather than trying tonight to zero in on exactly how much and sort of what the specific responsibilities might be, to just leave that for another conversation, but discuss among ourselves if we're in agreement with requesting ARPA funds at some level for that purpose. And we have the Sustainability Committee scheduled to come back and talk to us. I think it's the last meeting in April about their work plan, revised work plan. And so it seems like that might be an opportune time to then discuss how much is it we would want to request from ARPA for sustainability work, not just for the committee, but generally for the whole town.
Yeah, I think it's really important to
Right.
not
not
always
get-
tie it strictly to
Right.
that committee.
Right, but it just would help us to see what their workload is.
Yeah.
And then
Sorry, which were.
the Sustainability Committee, they're going to come back
Oh, yeah.
with their work plan, with their revised work plan. Yeah. So how do folks feel about that? Bill?
I think we should, I agree. I think we should handle each one of these things as buckets, but we may have to go back to one. Because I didn't see in here kind of like, or maybe it was in a recent thing here, kind of where we would end up in ARPA. With all of the things that we had.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd like
Just making sure that we have,
Yeah.
making sure that we have enough. So I completely agree with that. Let's keep it out of operating, put it in ARPA, but we might have to come back and visit that once we talk about ARPA.
Yeah.
I agree.
Everybody comfortable with that?
It's a great way of putting
Okay. You, Kate?
Yep.
Okay, good. So we're in agreement on that. And so, and the
Well,
things,
Excuse me, I just want to back up. Is that divorced from discussing whether we really still want some of it, some of the sustainability needs to be in the operating budget?
I think that when we talk about ARPA, we may say, oh my goodness, it's much less than we thought, because I can't think of what the number is where we landed on ARPA with all of these things right now. And we may say, maybe we ought to put some more of it in the operating budget. But I would think for now, we
Okay,
should try to
I-
get it all in the, in ARPA.
Okay,
That's what we decided last time.
No,
No, it wasn't.
no,
We
it wasn't.
decided operating last time,
we
right?
decided
Yeah.
30
Right.
K in operating,
right.
and then seems to me that we're left us some room to see if we could put the other 30K in ARPA to have the full amount then.
The full amount to, well, we wouldn't want to hire, we
60,000.
wouldn't, first of all, it's not the full amount. But also, because it doesn't include fringe benefits, but also,
Well,
we don't want to pay for a person through ARPA. Right, even if we're splitting it. I mean, we were all very clear, no staff in ARPA.
But I think
Well, this
that's
is what we're
another,
discussing.
I think that's a separate conversation, because I know originally we discussed that, and then partly that was at the suggestion of I think the
That was the
sense of the
suggestion of
ARPA committee.
The ARPA
But
committee.
then that's all kind of shifted around as we've continued to discuss this, where now, and Kate, you can represent this better than I can.
Well,
ARPA committee is-
Originally, ARPA committee was not in favor of entities coming in and piloting positions that would then have to be either canceled or borne by the town later in the operating budget. So I think it's up, and that we didn't, and the ARPA committee also didn't want anything that hadn't been already vetted through other channels like
Mhm.
FinCom and Select Board. But if the Select Board were to decide that this is really important, that we really want to have a full-time sustainability position here, then the ARPA committee would have no objection, I think, to an application be made for either all or part of that position, because it would be, I think, the first decision we have to decide is this important for the town or not?
Well, we're sort of-
Regardless of how it's funded.
Funded.
I think we're jumping to the end, but I thought that last time what we discussed was, let's give it $30,000 for help and for consulting fees
Right.
and not do the full-time position. And so what I'm hearing is we want to talk about that again,
I
which
get
is fine, but
All right,
it's what we decided last time.
Well, I agree with the first part that we talked about consulting and staff time. I don't recall that we agreed that wouldn't be a full-time position, but
Yeah,
whether
because
or not,
We told FinCom to put 30,000 in the budget,
correct,
right? Okay.
correct. And then they came back and said, no, we don't want the 30,000 in the budget.
put
We
it
would
in
rather
ARPA.
see it funded by ARPA. So I guess I'm back to where I started to say, I'd rather not get into the specifics of whether it's a full-time position, whether it's part-time, whatever combination it is of consulting staff time. If we're in agreement that we do want to move ahead and get ARPA funding to support sustainability for the town, then I'd like us to move ahead with this budget as it is, which does not include any additional money for sustainability resources. And I think we were in agreement with that earlier in this conversation.
yeah, I just want to be real clear about the message we're sending, though.
Okay,
That's all. I'm just,
Okay.
Right.
does that send the message that we're not in support of sustainability and all the jobs that need to be done around it?
Well, I agree. I think there's three items to me. So one is I would like a sense of where ARPA spend, how much ARPA spend is left, because elsewhere in this is,
Mhm.
what we also agreed to was 150,000 left over after we do everything. And is
in
that,
ARPA, yeah.
is that
At
roughly,
least, yeah.
at least, is that like, where are we? 30,000 or 60,000? I mean,
Okay, well, there was 447,000. We asked for 150,000 to be held back for
Right.
social reserves.
Yeah.
And you guys said 150, so that was 300. So there's still 150
We're just at 150
floating around. Yeah, we're
Just
about at 100. I think we're just about at
We're
150.
at 300.
is it
300.
150 plus 150 of social?
Exactly.
And what did we ask for?
That's
100.
what it is what we asked for.
Okay, so, and that's before you apply if you were to sustainability.
That's
Correct.
correct.
All right,
Right.
that's not as much as I.
But we also talked about other things that may or may not be in there, and I'm not sure where those landed. Are those
We-
in the?
Those are already accounted
Calculated.
for
Everything
in
is-
that 447 that was left.
So,
over.
so let me be clear. So you buy all the things that this capital plan suggests ARPA's gonna buy, other than sustainability, and nothing towards the auditorium lighting, right? That's its own
Correct.
thing.
That's its own thing.
Okay, got it. And then at that point, if all that happens, 150 dry powder and 150 also dry powder, but really earmarked for social
Yes.
things. Okay.
Right.
So that's item one. So then of that, if it's 30, it's not so much. But if it's 60 or 70, it's a fair chunk of that reserve. Okay, so that's one point. Second point is kind of in line with what you're saying about the message. ARPA's like the 1 year of it.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean?
Yes.
Right? Because eventually we should decide, and I'm okay saying trial period, we're gonna see blah, 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 but we have to understand that once you do that, you're going down a path that if it works, it needs to be built into the operating budget.
Mhm.
And then the third piece, it's not, I would say, not so much that FinCom, I forget the verb you used, but I would use the verb recommend. I mean, they're
Yes.
recommend to us.
Correct. We
They
could.
don't say what to
Go
do.
back and
We
change
can
it.
always say, look,
Yeah,
we
want
told
you
you
to
we
do
want
this.
this is what we want.
Yeah.
And we can do the math. And honestly, same thing, 30K in the operating budget is not gonna move the needle much
Mm-hmm.
off
Mm-hmm.
this tax rate. It meets all the other things we said. So, I mean,
And I just want to say one more thing about your ARPA calculation is there are a couple of projects that may not be, that have been approved, that may not be finally funded. So
because
there'd
of
be,
timing or,
yeah.
okay, so there may be.
There'll be
some-
turn back
because
of
they-
money that
they-
wasn't used.
And there's one particularly in the school where we're worried about
Yeah.
how expensive it's gotten. So
Yeah. Okay.
that might be.
Right.
So.
So again,
We had
to
asked
me,
to have some, if we had asked FinCom, is there, I'm just thinking about the lighting. I think we had all prioritized that and we had said, let's see, how much of that is a capital operating expense and could any of that go into ARPA? Could there be, like 50-50 or something like that?
Right.
That is not calculated into the 300 that we
correct.
have left? Okay.
Yeah, and currently there is a warrant article or a separate warrant article now for the auditorium lighting for the town to vote on.
So that would be all of it coming out of this year's budget. Next year's budget.
lighting.
So a capital item, okay, we haven't read it.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
we haven't gotten there yet, but
Yeah.
I guess I want to circle back, see if we can wrap this up. So I'm going to make a statement, and let me see if this is correct, that the entire select board is going on record as supporting that the town of Carlisle address moving us to a more sustainable environment with resources for the FY '24 year. And we are going to do that by using ARPA funds.
Hmm.
And we are not going to put any funds in the FY '24 operating budget.
That's not what I think we just said.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
We just said, so I think last time we said that we wanted to support the sustainability and we said $30,000. This time, today, what we've just said is we still want to support it. Whether it goes into operating or we end up really needing to put it in the, whether it goes in ARPA or we really need to put it in the operating budget is going to depend upon where we actually land with ARPA.
Okay,
So we should go through the operating budget, just knowing, as I said at the beginning, knowing that we may go back and put $30,000 more.
But we have to sign off on this at our next meeting.
We,
the
do we have
11th.
any more information on why the finance committee, I mean, I thought it was pretty clear. We said, we really want you to put this amount in the operating budget, and they pushed back, which is fine. I mean, we
Mhm.
ultimately decide, but
Right.
it's their prerogative if they push back. Do we know why they pushed back?
We're in the-
My understanding, yeah, from being in several discussions is that there's a question about what the work would be, what work needs to be done. And if it's for a position, what is the actual job description for that person? And even though we have a draft that Julie and Ryan developed, they would like to see more definition of the needs. And I think one reason the idea of a consultant came up was that would be a person who could help define what a position might look like. Let me think, were there other arguments? And I think the other was just the commitment of, in the operating budget, the commitment of funds for a position. Not ready to, wanted to, there to be more demonstrated need before a position was put into the operating budget. So they are saying next spring for the spring town meeting of 24. Yeah,
But I think, I mean, their logic doesn't really hold because we said, we agreed that we weren't ready to create a permanent position.
Right.
We said a consultant. But to me, that argument that you're not ready is not a good argument.
Well, it's the same argument that we had and that they presented us
Right.
before. It's just because of that, they have a different solution than we have.
They
which
have a
makes
different
sense.
solution, but they have a different solution, I think, purely on numerical grounds. I think there's no thematic reason. If you're saying a consultant who's gonna spec a job or decide whether there is a job, that's an operating expense. Now, we may decide to use ARPA, but their logic isn't, it's not logical. That's all I'll say.
Well, the nice thing about it though, is that once you put something in the operating budget, even if you don't have that consultant the next year,
Yep.
you still have that $30,000 in the operating
Right.
budget. And so next year, I presume we would be adding a sustainability person. I don't know if that for a fact.
Right. Or not.
And that would, or not,
Right.
and that would either
Make it go down.
not
or
at
go
all
up.
be added, or it would be added, and
Yeah.
this 30,000 would not be kind of always there.
Which
So
leaves,
it-
I agree
to
with
me, it
that
makes
completely.
sense.
And also, I want to circle back on Kate's point about messaging.
Hmm,
That's a better
Yes.
message than ARPA. ARPA's like, okay, we're
right,
not
it's
sure.
temporary. Yeah,
I think a consultant who has a clear agenda, who works the issues, and we are sending the message, hey, we support you, but you need clarity. We have a message to the public that we support sustainability, but we have a message to the ESC that you guys haven't been clear enough yet.
well, and also to Kate's point, not just the ESC, but
Yeah.
our town as a whole.
It's not
No, I
up
said
to
the first
ESC
message-
To write job descriptions for the town hall.
First maybe, let me restate it. The first message is to the town as a whole.
Yes.
Yeah,
We support ARPA. I mean, we support sustainability.
right.
And we are allocating money to that cause. The other message, it's to ESC/town, whatever it is. We support you, but you haven't been clear enough and yet for us to go with a position. So please use this money. Tell us they're coming back. Tell us how you're gonna,
Yeah, but it's
Sure.
not I don't want to tell ESC come back.
okay.
It's Ryan and Aubrey who will come and
But with
Julie who
guidance.
will come
Right.
back.
Okay, fair enough.
I think it's not you need to come back. I think it's just, we
We,
need more, we need more detail. We need to
Yes.
dive into
and
it.
we're
Yeah.
prepared to fund
Right.
it to.
And we're prepared, yeah.
Okay, so what I'm hearing then is that we want to say, no, we want the 30,000 to be added to this
Yes.
FY 24 operating
Yes.
budget.
Yes.
Okay,
Well,
No.
is that correct
The
or
opposite
no?
of what we were just saying.
well, no, we were.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
saying,
I'm
saying. I
I'm
think
hearing
it
different
belongs-
message. Yeah,
saying I
you're
think it
saying you
belongs
want to
separate.
put 30,000 in the operating budget to send the message that we're serious about this. And what do you
I'm saying
thinking?
we put it in ARPA because that 30,000 is going to remain in the budget next year. And because that's just the way budgets work, right? You know, budgets grow and grow and grow. So let's put it in let's put it in ARPA. We have the ARPA funds. It's a one-time thing. Because next year we will have the answer.
Okay, so there are
And
two,
so put it in
different-
ARPA, don't grow our budget by 30,000 kind of permanently. Because these things always get forgotten, right? And that
No, I won't
30,000 is there.
well,
But you're saying anyway, it'd be in the budget.
It will be, it will be. in
Regardless of
ARPA,
how
it'll
it's
come out of
funded,
ARPA.
it'll
Yep,
be in the budget.
absolutely.
So how is that different? The source of funding
Well,
doesn't
it's
matter. The
what-
baseline budget will have that 30,000 in it.
no,
Yes, but what you,
You're saying not this year, right? Or I guess I'm not following that.
yeah,
Are you saying you don't want to put it in the operating budget for 2004?
I agree with FinCom that it makes sense to take it out of ARPA.
Okay. Right.
I
Okay.
do think we should fund it. I think we should.
But with
take it out
ARPA
of
funds. okay, and you're saying we should fund it by putting 30,000 in the current FY 24 operating budget.
I believe that's the correct approach, but I'm
Okay,
prepared to
So, no, that's,
cede the position.
no, let's just see what the feeling of the board is. This is a good conversation. Let's just do straw poll here, okay? So who agrees that we should, for FY 24, use ARPA funds to support sustainability for the town?
I would support that.
Okay. And Nathan,
And
are you,
Well, I'm on the fence. I mean, because if it's not going to be supported in the operating budgets, I definitely want it to.
No, it's one or the other. We're gonna do one or
Board
the other.
Has
Yeah.
supported it, unanimously.
Right.
Yeah,
So
and
I don't
Just out of paper.
although
would
I
have paid for it?
I don't want to say I have sympathy. I certainly totally understand your point about it being in the budget. I still feel the messaging from our point of view is that, you know,
We're not
our
quite
major
there.
get goal this year was sustainability. And if we don't put it, even a half of it in the,
No, we're going
budget.
to put it in. I mean, we're gonna do it.
But she's saying there's a difference between using ARPA funds, which
I
are
know
more
it's-
temporary.
That's on your.
and
the
putting-
idea is that,
been
you know,
done.
if it's,
If it gets done, it's done. I mean, we have a commitment because it's funded.
yeah, no, we'll have the same fight next year to fund it.
Sort of temporary. So where do you
Because
land?
it's a temporary.
I'm not
But
clear.
I
where you
think
land.
I
It's
would.
raised
prefer
your
to
like
see-
half a.
I would, okay, my preference is to put it in the operating budget.
Okay.
You're the decider, Chair.
Uh,
You just decide. I don't.
No, I think we should, I would agree, putting it in the operating budget sends 30,000, adding 30,000 to what's currently listed here for sustainability. It's a stronger message about our commitment. So I would support that. So that's a 3-2 straw poll. Are we prepared to take a vote on it, or
Do we have to?
Nathan, you and Travis okay with that?
Well, if you want to officially vote, we're happy to.
I would take a vote because you never know,
Okay.
you could get
You
consensus.
should vote if we, yeah, you.
So
Okay.
It could be a
All right,
3-2.
so
or
would
people
one
can
of you
change-
make a motion, please?
I move we put, we ask the FinCom to include
Direct,
30,000.
direct the
instruct-
FinCom.
To direct the FinCom to, add 30,000, for sustainability, line
In the FY
in the-
24.
in the operating budget.
Can you add, if I may, and not put it in ARPA? Because I don't want it to make it seem like
Yes, right.
I am
Right.
not supporting the funding.
Right,
Yeah.
and not put it in ARPA. Right.
Second.
Any more discussion? All right, let's do, I guess we could do let's do a roll call vote on this one. Arnold, I.
Brown, eh?
Model I.
Reed, I.
Snell, nay.
Okay, so 3-2. It
Haven't had
gets-
many of those, huh?
No, directed, it'll be added to the operating
happens.
budget. Okay,
It's okay.
So you have
Right.
five.
have to make some decisions sometimes. Okay. So I believe that concludes the outstanding items for the operating budget. And then if we move down to the,
So over last time we talked about it, the only thing we've changed in the budget, because I didn't compare the two.
Yeah.
The only thing that we've changed in the budget is we've just added 30,000 more into it. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
yeah, and note that the second cruiser was taken out based on our,
That's capital.
yes, sorry, I'm going down to going down to the capital, draft 5-year capital plan.
Yeah.
So you'll see out to the right, the notes that indicate things are going to be covered by ARPA. And the only things that have changed here, let me just because you'll see it in the warrant items.
What stinks
But
here is
we,
the amounts
um,
aren't here anymore.
Yeah,
So we don't know how much is going into ARPA.
that's right. But
Right,
it was like 40,000 and
agreed.
25,000 and it added up to 100.
Yeah,
It was going to be 180 with the 30, you know,
All these things are funded, that say funded through ARPA are calculated into the ARPA. We still have
Yes.
300,000 left.
yes.
and the only thing that is, so the, yeah,
Do we need to request them to take that 30,000 out of free cash as well, or do they, you know?
No,
No,
that's
because we
another
said,
question.
but don't take it out of ARPA. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So they decide how they,
You're gonna let them decide
They
whether
fund
to use
it.
free cash or.
free cash or whatever. Yeah.
right.
Okay.
And then if we go to the, next page, which is requested financial warrant articles.
just
So
skip
that-
Capital or you're gonna do getting,
Well, no, I didn't mean to skip it. I thought people had reviewed it.
well,
So,
just so we understand, I guess.
I thought Ryan, one of Ryan's emails said that, that they
180.
recommended that we do the sand truck or.
The sand, we recommended the
ARPA.
sand body, the HVA for the wastewater treatment
the fridge and freezer for
and the
the
fridge and freezer
school
for the school.
and the elevator for the
and the
school.
Elevator, that would had already been on.
Yeah,
Oh, the sand,
Yeah.
sand body is ARPA?
yeah. If you
Yes.
see out
It's
to the right,
calculated
it's
in
in
the
yellow.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
That's at 150, you know, you said use that, which ones would you use 150 for? So that was the sand
Oh.
body.
So that's not
It was-
calculated, that's not over and above the 300,000. That's
That's
taking
correct.
away from
That's
the 150.
Taking away from the 150, sorry. Yes.
How much is a sand body? We don't have the numbers here anymore.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think it was like,
Okay, so at the end of all of
40,000.
this, we don't actually have 300,000 left in ARPA.
we have the 150. And then we spent the 150 you told us to allocate. And then there's still some money left because there was more than 300,000 when we started this whole thing. And we've only talked about 300,000 of the 450,000 that was still unallocated. You didn't use up, select board did not use up the entire unallocated ARPA fund.
Okay,
They still let you guys.
I'm just
I-
trying to
I'm
get my
saying
head
you
around it.
guys.
Because, because what we had hoped for was that at the end of this budget season, we would have the 150 for the event type things, and we would
Yes.
have 150 in case something came up.
That's right. So, and you still have that.
We still have that.
You still have that.
So this
yes.
is, this sand,
So, and
the sand body is not coming out of that
that's right. That's not
at
coming out of that.
300,000.
that-
Okay.
Okay. Yes, there was like,
And the other item, just if you go down to the next page, the requested financial warrant articles. So the other item that's moved to ARPA is the chart of
Oh, yeah.
accounts for the accounting
that's right.
department,
And that
which
was,
was 40,000, I
was
believe.
that 40? Yes.
Yeah,
Why is that now blanked out?
Let's see,
Because it's,
think
because for the,
blanks it out, but
if
I
it's, if
agree
it's
with you. I
being
don't like
funded
that.
by ARPA, yeah.
There's a note to.
Oh, because it's funded.
We don't have a spreadsheet for ARPA.
If he's gonna
Correct.
blank it out, he's gonna
right,
know.
not anymore.
Sure.
I mean, we had one before, but let me see if it's in the last packet.
It was like,
I think it's 40, but
Wait, I'll look, because here's the old warrant list.
No, I don't.
so I've lost the thread of the,
Yeah, it was
Charged by-
40,000 for the chart of accounts expansion.
So
so just give me the sort of rough amounts, elevator,
that was like 185, wasn't it?
yeah, freezer, RTUs.
So let me, stepping back again, the ones that are still on the list, oh, he's taken them all off.
He's taking them all off. It's hard to know what.
Yeah, so that, because he was trying to calculate the total outside of ARPA,
Okay.
but.
So when when ARPA had its conversation with you guys to see how much you wanted us to pull back and whatever, we had already taken the 185 and the campus walk for the elevator and the campus walkway out of our totals when we gave it to you.
Mhm.
Okay, so everything that originally wanted to be funded through ARPA, we took out.
Originally,
Then you said, how much? Then we said we wanted and as I recall, it was around 450 balance in there after all this stuff had already been taken out. And we said, we want 150. You guys said you wanted to spend an additional 150 and that leaves 150 left. More or less.
Okay.
Well, why don't we
It's hard
do
not
this?
having actual numbers.
I know.
Yeah, so why don't we do this?
Be as clear as
Let's,
possible. I don't have it in front of me either.
we can make our approval of these, of the operating budget and this capital plan contingent upon seeing the the information about ARPA's, getting a final tally on what is being funded by ARPA and where we are in terms of the remaining ARPA funds. We can do something like that. And then at the meeting on the 11th, sign off finally, after we have a chance to see that.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
I
Yeah,
was trying to see if one of the old versions, the email might have some of the ARPA numbers, but if we. want-
yeah.
I
Here, I have-
the
yeah.
sand body's 32K, the RTUs are 40K,
No, it just says.
the elevator's 140K. Yeah, I think it's okay.
I think we.
The
need to definitely
accounting is
ARPA
40.
Yeah.
Accounting is 40.
Yeah. So,
All right, so I think we're.
so in principle, are we comfortable with this capital plan spending,
I'm okay.
other folks?
So we're saying 50,000 for IT upgrades, 60,000 for the cruiser, 15,000 for replacement hose, 180,000 for a dump truck, and 42,000 for internal security cameras at the school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so,
Does that really add up to 347?
I don't know, it's a
180,
PDF.
220,
Mm, 110,
280.
125. It's
Yes.
the 180 that.
Okay, got it.
that-
It's more or less close enough.
okay,
The following year's 1.7.
Well, yeah, but
You got a fire truck and some other things.
that huge, we'll probably
so
bond
we-
the big Bonanza, which is that, what, fire truck, 850, yeah.
That's gonna be bonded.
Okay, so, should we take a quick straw poll then?
So
Or
what we're
maybe
doing
we'll,
is
let's
we're
do,
Making this year's capital, just to what Travis was just saying, next year is much bigger, but that's because this year would be bigger. But we're using ARPA funds to buy a lot of it because we have
Right.
them.
right,
Yes.
right.
well, and we're kicking the can down the road on it.
Yeah,
But and by the way, we'll do that again with other things.
All right, but I would love to have a motion to approve the FY 24 operating budget and the capital plan contingent upon a review of the ARPA fund spending and remaining funds, something to that effect.
Pending further review.
Yeah, just.
Or we could just do it that way.
Yeah,
That's
well,
right. It doesn't have to
yeah.
be ARPA review. All right,
It's,
We're-
just
we're-
to let you know, the 11th is our final recommendations and sign. So,
which is our next meeting,
yeah.
So we're approving it now, but we'll have to vote again next time.
right? And I think we want to send a signal that we,
Sure.
with the motion we made earlier, the decision we made earlier to add 30,000 back into the operating budget,
Mhm.
we are in agreement pending further review with both the FY 24 budget and the capital plan. Would somebody make that motion or say so moved?
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Then we are going to get to the warrant articles. And I think we'd like to begin with the very patiently waiting Gleason Library trustees and perhaps some others that are on the call. Aubrey, maybe you could take down the budget that's up there. Thanks.
Oh.
And Christine, would you and, oh, you have three of you. Why don't you all bring up a chair? That's great. Great. And I,
I'm trying to
See that,
see, what does, if Martha.
Martha, the librarian is,
Point.
yeah.
Perfect. There she goes.
And so, for our benefit tonight, this is the presentation about the library historic renovation, application that is before the CPC committee. And it's in the warrant as a CPA
Didn't
application,
we see this one?
way back, I
Yeah.
think.
At the
All right.
outset of the project, I
Right.
believe that we briefed you on the plan that the library wanted to, the trustees wanted to renovate the library.
Okay.
And so last year we hired an architecture firm. They drew up some plans based on what we said we wanted to accomplish. Kate, as our liaison to the library, has been very, just, I think, full of great ideas, lots of great suggestions, and is very well informed of these plans. Okay, so on the phone, we have Martha.
Is anybody from the historical?
Hi there. Can everyone hear me?
Chrissy O'Shea. Who else from the Historical Commission is online, please? Chrissy is.
Are there other members of the, are there members of the Historic Commission joining us virtually? Could you please say hi? Let us know who you are. You may have to unmute. Maybe not. Okay.
So we have briefed them as well. And where they left it was they wanted to consult with town council. And they wanted to ask that we have the funds moved from the historic bucket to the undesignated bucket.
For the CPA funds. Okay.
That's where we left it. You know, I think speaking for the other trustees, we don't care what bucket it comes from.
Right. Okay.
Who
Here,
advised you, the council told you to do that, or the historical?
yeah, the legal counsel, or town council had said they approve on the basis of, I think, both precedent and what we were asking for.
For it to come out of historic.
And then they recommended that we consult or work with, I forget what the exact wording was, with Historical Commission,
Which you did do.
which we have done, yeah. So that's where it stands with the Historical Commission.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
Alright.
Martha, thanks for joining us. And
Mhm.
please walk us through your,
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for having us. Mhm. Oops.
Martha, can you advance the slide?
Oops.
Oh, there we are.
There we go.
Okay, so the plans as drawn up by Schwartz Silver Architects came to about $2.3 million, which sounds, you know, it's always a little sticker shock going on when you first get a number. But this is, you know, a 127-year-old building, 11,000 square feet. So anyone who's had work done on their house knows that it adds up quickly. So we have no huge grand plans, but the numbers do add up. The items outlined in red there, the columns, are the sections.
Sorry
of
about
the-
that.
Sections of the library that the CPC funds would be, or the CPA funds would be allocated toward. And these are the common spaces, the meeting spaces, because the purpose of the renovation at its heart is to make the library the family room of the community. Basically, it would be a space where more people can come together and converse. So we have seen a number of distinct trends, and these are, by the way, nationwide trends that every library around the country is experiencing, where fewer books are being checked out, more people are turning to online resources, and instead they use the library as sort of a WeWork space or a place to come together and meet. So what we wanted to do was enhance our meeting rooms, which are very modest right now, and then also allocate a more defined space for the teens, because that's a important part of our constituency, right? Every afternoon, anyone who's been in a library around 3 o'clock knows that they converge like locusts, and they're noisy. They make themselves heard. And then the children's space has some enhancements as well. So these are separate and distinct from what the MFC is requesting. Happy to take your questions on any of the project costs. We have eye-watering detail behind all of these, by the way. 24 pages of single-spaced, what everything will cost.
I wonder if it might be worth it though, unless everyone here has seen the visual of what it currently
Mhm.
looks like and what it will look like.
Yeah, let's walk you
maybe
through the
before- and
renderings.
Then we can come back if people have specific questions.
And then just to, I know you guys all have this invite on your calendars, but we've invited the select board to a tour on April 6th. So you guys are welcome, 12:30 to 1:30.
I think Ryan sent it out to us.
Okay,
Yeah.
April 6th, what time?
12:30 to 1:30. And obviously, if you can't make that, we are always happy to give a tour.
April 6th.
Mhm.
So right,
Oh,
there we are. So
mhm.
here's the first floor. So if you guys walk
Mhm.
into the library, this is what you see. It's a very defined stairwell. It's kind of right in the middle of everything. It makes it a little difficult for the librarians to have clear line of sight. And this matters for safety reasons and also for staffing reasons. And then just sort of general, you want to, greet your guests and
Mhm.
be able to establish visual contact. And then Martha, why don't I ask you to take over?
Sure, yep, I'll narrate this. So, the vision is to, remove that massive central staircase that just blocks all of the sight lines and takes up, it feels like, most of the first floor, and instead put one staff service desk there in the middle, ready to greet people when they come in. A smaller staircase will be built over where the circulation desk is now. So, if you can picture the library, basically it'd be one continuous staircase going from the first floor up to the second, up to the third. So just stacked under that existing staircase. So more efficient use of space, and also would not carry noise the same way the current staircase opening is. But we like this because it really just puts people at the center. And here's the back view of the current staircase. Not the most appealing thing. It also means that people working at the computers are just in the middle of everything, sprawling outwards.
The people who use those computers, by the way, are the middle schoolers, because everybody else pretty much brings their own.
Mhm.
So you've got,
Mhm.
a lot of noise around.
Yeah, and we definitely, over the years, we don't need as many, computers fixed in one place as we currently have. So here's the view from the reverse of that. So the new staircase will be behind the wall where you can see the arch. So there'll still be a gallery wall for the art at the Gleason, and then the shelves below that will be reserved for the Friends of the Library book sale. And you can also see back towards the corner, if you can see, there's a door with a man on a phone. That's going to be everything old is new again, installing a phone booth room, basically. But yeah, a one-person study room where people can have phone calls, people can teleconference, be on Zooms, and not be, disturbing others with the noise from that. Now, this is our existing.
Hold on just a second,
wait.
Martha. Karen, did you have something you wanted to add?
No. I just wanted to mention that the staircase would be to the right of this picture. You can't see it because,
Oh, behind that
behind
wall?
that
yeah, behind the, yeah.
The wall
That's
was
right.
designed as solid, both to give more space to display art and also to close off noise.
Right.
Mhm, That's
Exactly.
right. Yes, and here's our existing reference section, which has become, less and less used over the years as people move online for further reference resources. And so that's the area where we're planning to put the teen section. So, an enclosed space, but still within sight and earshot of the staff desk. There'll be booths where kids can work together, as well as a counter where they can plug in laptops at the back there. The lighting fixtures in the mural are examples, not necessarily the exact thing that would be there, but there will be similar things with a similar feel to create more of a youthful space. And again, if you're familiar with the library right now, the teen area is some furniture out in the open, and then shelving collections that extend this way and that way through the library because it's overgrown its space. And they really need their own section with all of the materials in one place, space for them to both socialize and do homework together. A little bit of everything. But I was saying to someone earlier, if you look back through the mosquito over the years and letters to the editor about the library, it's like every 3 or 4 years, people are like, wow, there are lots of kids at the library after school. Why don't they have somewhere to be? And we would like to create that
Is
space.
that where they're supposed to be? Love it.
Yeah, there are no other places for them to go in town.
The library or building their little houses in the woods. And then here's our current meeting room space on the second floor, which is something that we added on about 5 years ago and saw a huge response to. The people were really looking for this kind of conference room space. And so, this is the proof of concept. We're going to make it better and split that space into 2 rooms. So there would be one larger conference room and then one smaller room where maybe about 3 people could sit, work with technology. And we're also talking to the Historical Society. They have a table that might work for this conference room space with some refurbishing. So
It was original to the library.
that was original to the library. So we're
Nice.
checking on the dimensions for that it would work.
Yeah, that's right. Lots of
Heard about
tables.
There's always one upstairs.
They're gonna-
I know,
Work
right?
out.
They're gonna fit it with outlets and everything, so it'll still be a
Right.
historic table, but 2020 plus.
Yeah. And this is our current teen area. So again, like we were saying, just out in the open on the second floor. We've got some fun furniture. We tried doing a little bit of a different paint color to define the area, but it really isn't its own section. It's just a space. And the noise from there bounces off of the ceiling and right down that large open staircase. So instead, in the new renovation, that will be the quiet reading area. And with the staircase moved, we won't have the noise funneling between the 2 floors the same way. So people are just looking for somewhere to sit, read, work, contemplate. There's your space for that. That's, set back from the busier part of the library. Another view of the second floor now. The staircase, again, takes up this huge chunk of the floor. And then in the redesign, we have the staff desk there, again, putting the people at the center. And in the background, you can see 2 glass doors, and those are into the 2 meeting rooms that will be available. And that is it for our visuals. There are also plans, in the renovation to do some updates, both to the children's room and then the Hollis room on the 3rd floor. But those are,
We don't have renderings for
we
those.
don't have renderings for those because they're not as dramatic. Like in the Hollis room, some updates to the lighting to make it work better for what it's being used for, AV updates, but not changing the historic character of the space.
Martha, can you go back to the pie chart, please?
Yes. There we
So
go.
Just to speak briefly on funding allocations, we have no intention of asking for additional town funds. We did put in an application, like we said, for 400K in CPC, for CPA funding. But by far, most of the amounts will be from private donations and from fundraising, events, and then, endowment accounts. I don't have numbers attached to these wedges because I don't know for sure, and I don't feel like I can
Mhm.
say it without being disingenuous. We don't know how much is going to be coming from grants. We continue to apply for grants, and they're all over the map in terms of amount. 7,500 to 50K is the amount. And then, all we can do is kind of cross our fingers and hope for the best. But we haven't heard back from a lot of these. So pending on the grants, but by far, we would call it roughly 80% will be coming from donations.
Go ahead, you go.
Yeah, good time for questions, comments.
So the library was last renovated 25 years,
25 years.
okay.
Yeah, 25 years ago, that's right.
Yeah, what at that point in time, what types of things were done? Was the staircase in that position at that point and it was mainly cosmetic, or what types of things were?
The staircase was added at that time. At the time, it was basically to extend out the back, I guess, had been a single story, and they made that into 2 stories. So that big cement staircase was added at that time. It's not historic to the building. And as I understand it, I wasn't in town at the time, but as I understand it from reading past papers, the intent was to, they had a fixed footprint. They needed more space for more books. So it was to accommodate more books. And this time, our pivot is sharp. We're pivoting away from more books because that's not been the trend, but it's much more, coming together space.
Yeah, and I think the previous renovation also it's a beautiful, from the exterior, it's beautiful and works so well with a historic building. And we just want to make the interior of that work better for us.
Right. And I think that makes sense. I mean, for a living, I actually I renovate commercial buildings. And so
Mhm.
I'm familiar with the process. And I think, you need to do that, just sort of like people renovate their homes you put a new kitchen in after 20 or 30
Mhm.
years. And it's just, you need to do that because, things change as well and the needs change. But I do want to make sure you all are aware, I'm on the Municipal Facilities Committee, and you have a number of other things coming up. You have a parking lot that's going to need repaving. You have the roof which has been redone, and the HVAC system, which is in progress and just about completed, or the new units on. But you have, besides the paving, I think there's another major one that's like 150,000. I've forgotten.
We've had a number of capital expenditures. So, and I think this comes with having a 127-year-old building.
It's
So
heavily,
Mhm.
that is heavily utilized.
heavily utilized, we get
Sure.
200 people a day in the doors. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a lot. I agree. We also have not, I had to go back and look at actual records, but I think our operating budget has been flat for the entire 7 years I've been a trustee. So we're very happy to have these capital injections into the library. It does need to happen. Though. We're kind of behind, we feel like.
Yeah. But I'm saying that individually, I'm very supportive. I mean, this is a
Wonderful.
great community asset, but I think, from what I just saw, it's a great vision, and I hope that you can get the money to, privately to fund that. But there are some expensive components too. Moving staircases are, a lot different than buying new shelves and counters, and rearranging and new light fixtures are a little more cosmetic, that when you
Right.
get into structural changes, it can become very expensive very quickly.
That's the one main structural
Mhm.
change. It's after that, it's a lot of smaller things that add up basically.
I forget how many square feet that they gained in floor area though from doing this net even was amazing. So if they were to put a similar, they couldn't because of the site constraints, but if they were adding on that number of square feet, it would have been a way more expensive proposition.
So can you speak a little to I mean, you have a $1.9 million gap and grants will be some, but most won't be. So can you tell us about your strategy for the private?
So between the private fundraising that we've already done, so I hosted a 125th anniversary gala at my home. We had in January, we turned the library into a mini golf course one Sunday afternoon, one snowy Sunday afternoon. Raised a quick $4,000 in an afternoon. So between fundraising that's already taken place, our endowment, some allocation from our endowment account, and whatever we get from, I don't think we've actually pocketed any grant money so far. But we have about $400,000 there, and then 400,000 from CPA funds. And that will put us 800K, and that's a third of the way there.
And how long do you give yourself to raise?
So that's a question mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. The castle took, I don't know, a year, and that was a little over $1 million. And then the Concord Library underwent a much larger change, and they undertook a $10 million campaign, but they had hired help, and it also took a year or two. So
Have you considered hiring help?
we would love to hire help.
I guess.
We
the
don't
thing
have
is-
the funds for that. That's
Oh,
a rich.
yeah, I
man's
mean, my recollection goes back to the high school, and Louis Salemi, who was nominally sort of running that campaign. There wasn't enough, in this case, it was MSBC funding or MSBA or whatever the acronym was, to do what we wanted to do. And so we undertook to privately fund, high school. Okay. And it was, I don't know, maybe, I mean, in a $100 million project, it was a few million, but maybe bigger scale. But he had a kind of a go, no go time. Couldn't raise the money. We were going to abandon that and just use the money the state gave us. And guess what? They didn't raise the money. So they went with a plan B, which was what we have today, which is a nice school building. It just doesn't have the extra gym and stuff that, people want it. My point, I guess, is, first of all, I think it takes a long time in this town. Concord is a little different. And secondly, is there a plan where you just use ARPA? I'm not ARPA, I'm sorry, I got ARPA on the brain, CPA and your other, like your 800K plan. I mean, I know the staircase opens up lots and blah, 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 but
Right.
the point is you have to do with what you've got. And if you wait years and years and you're trying to raise, then, that's not helpful either. So.
Right. So Karen is in the process of drawing up a timeline. We're not quite ready to declare the timeline. The balance is $1.5 million, which we don't think is an unbridgeable gap in this town. The library's not going anywhere. So
No, I
there's
know.
no expiration date here.
That's true.
There is a grant agreement that's going to be attached to the CPC funds, and it's a 3-year expiration point. If we can't do it in 3 years, yeah, you better believe we're going to de-scope.
Okay, so some of the things in the pictures, I mean, I understand like what Travis is saying, and I understand what Kate's saying, you open up a lot of floor. But if the trend is to fewer books, wouldn't that by itself open up floor space anyway?
It would, but what do you do with all that? It's the same thing downstairs on the first floor. We have DVDs and CDs that don't get used anymore. Okay, so you move those out. Now what do you do?
Well, I guess what I'm thinking, and like I'm thinking about that teen space, the change wasn't that dramatic. Like the shelves had different stuff in it, and maybe there's some tables. That didn't strike me as 140,000 or whatever worth of stuff. So I wonder if there's it seems, and I guess I reveal my bias against architects who draw fanciful sketches. It seems like we could have a more modest plan. Anyway, just a more modest plan, and not just as a backup even, but to just do some things that are simple and relatively inexpensive, that are creative about space use. I mean, when people don't have money, they still make space, and they
We
still
do.
use
Yeah, it's not necessarily, okay, so we talk about the space because that's been the most definitive trend.
Mhm.
But the other thing is people want to plug in, and they don't want to go plug in some random outlet over there in the corner. They want to plug in their chair. And, that's available any airport these days, right? So we kind of want to bring the library not only into the 21st century, but to set the community up for the next 25 years. And that's more than just moving out a few book stacks.
Right. I think another thing, as we're really looking towards the future too, by taking out the staircase and opening up that floor space. 25 years from now, needs change. You can do so much more with the little cosmetic changes at that point if you have an open space to work with, rather than being constrained by, here's the staircase, here's where our fixed reference and circulation desks are. So, yes, if we need to, we could definitely, make some changes on a smaller budget. But we've been trying to do that for pretty much the whole time I've been at the library, and, incrementally getting a little bit better, but not being able to find a way to cohesively do all of the things that really need to be done.
Nathan, or do you have any?
Just have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
One of them was already answered, which was, how long is the contract going to be for? I think there is going to be that time where you need to decide, because the contract is over in 3 years, doesn't mean we couldn't go back to town meeting again and do it, get the money again, and you would imagine you would get it, just kind of like as a contract extension or something like that. But we'd have to vote on it again. So
That's that's my question. If CPC times out, you just.
Make it free of-
nothing would prevent them from, the money goes back into CPC. And so they could just request it. One would imagine they would be requesting more money, because the costs would have gone up. Is this going to be going in? I mean, have you decided yet? Is it going in as a historical commission? Coming out of historical funds, or is it going into the general funds?
Yeah,
'Cause I'm wondering, like, who's signing the contract? Who's signing, like, who's the one, obviously you'll be presenting. But as I understand it, if it's historical commission, the historical commission has to get up and say that this is ours. If it's,
Designated funds.
yeah, if it's undesignated, who does that? Can they do it themselves, or who does it if it's
CPC Committee.
the CPC? Yeah, so we just need to figure that out.
Yeah.
And also just making real certain this is allowable, because I know we ran into some issues with Highland. because I was on Highland too. And we ran into some issues about the types of changes we wanted to make inside were not actually historic.
Mhm.
Like we could restore as much as we wanted, and that's what we did the whole outside. But just being really, really careful that we know that it's allowable.
So legal counsel has already reviewed this with Drew, and they had a recommendation that we work with the Historic Commission. As I said at the outset, it's not been decided exactly which bucket. We three are indifferent. So I think
You guys will do that. You're on CPC, right?
CPC, no, I am.
Oh, you are.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm on everything else.
You're right. Yeah, right. So that's something we will determine.
Yes, we just need to know who is sponsoring it.
Correct.
And my other question was how long for? And the other is just making sure that whoever is sponsoring it's allowable under that sponsor.
Right.
Because we'd hate to go through the whole thing and then find out, oh, we have to
Right,
pull it
no.
all back because it wasn't allowable.
Absolutely.
Then you've raised funds and you've just lost $400,000
Yeah. Yeah. We're not going to do that.
because it's not our purview to decide.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
Right. Department of Revenue has their rules and yeah.
Yeah. Well, we thank you very much for the presentation. It's good to know, and to those of you that can make that tour, if be interested in doing that. And
What
do it at night.
time is the tour?
we're happy to, if the time is not convenient, we can probably move it. That's
What-
not-
daytime.
What
Yeah.
time is it? Because I don't think I got the
12:30 to 1:30
12:30.
currently scheduled, but
Just for us or other people as well?
it's just for you.
so you know what, Christine, maybe
less
you should
camping.
work with Ryan about sending out maybe an alternative, or maybe having him check in with the board, I guess, with what would be a better time.
Yeah, I think town administration was going to join as well, but we're happy to.
Yeah, that'd be
Mhm.
good. Great. And then the CPC will be meeting and getting all the ducks in order for the town meeting on this. Yeah, but then the library will be, the trustees, I'm assuming, will be part of the making the presentation at town meeting. Yeah. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we, this is jumped ahead on the warrant, on the list of warrants to go through because we wanted them to be able to make their presentation. If you look at the handout that Ryan provided us with, which is the updated list of warrant items, I'd like to move to that conversation now so that we can go through them. Ideally, we would be, well, if not by 10 minutes, probably isn't enough time, but at the latest by 8:30, if we could be done with whatever we're going to get through tonight on the warrant articles, so that we can hear from Julie about and have our discussion about the scope for the fire and police station study. So with that in mind, if you look at the handout, the first section, items, articles 1 through 8, then I don't know, can you put this up, Aubrey, for those watching virtually? Thanks, and those in the audience now. So the consent agenda, as we usually have at the very beginning, is the routine items that are listed here down through item 8. And I don't think we need to discuss these. These are what has typically been in the consent.
Actually, it's kind of shorter than usual. Usually we've had like this
Okay,
11 or
town meeting.
12, but
Yeah.
So, I mean, number 8, I think we should discuss because they're asking us to consider something. Which one is Parlin?
Arlen is the one that's just right here across the hall,
Oh,
kitty
over
corner
there.
from where we are now, right next to the town clerks.
Oh, I thought that was.
Yeah, that little one, right, next to the town clerk.
I thought that was the building commissioner now. That's upstairs.
No, that's upstairs.
Yeah.
That's formerly the Nichols room,
It's the Nichols room is over there.
is the upstairs
Oh,
one.
the upstairs.
The
Okay.
Where yeah.
This,
So how are we going to decide whether or not we're going to increase the amount? How would we, know what
if it's-
equipment we were buying and
So this would come out of the cable company payments, right? And it doesn't impact the operating budget, but
I don't think it can be in the consent.
yeah, maybe not.
Well, it can be.
I mean,
it's
it
just-
can, but-
It's just, that is an amount.
Right.
And so
And-
we just need to know what are we buying and how much is
Right.
that?
So, and remember, as we go through these at town meeting, anybody can say, I want to have discussion of this item and it gets pulled out of the consent
I
agenda, but
assume it's a monitor and an owl, like what they've done
Yeah,
for
no
the
idea.
other ones,
Yeah.
but I can't.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Probably be
Yes.
pulled out.
Well, we certainly
Well-
need to discuss it before we put it into the,
consent
I think it's
agenda,
fine having it as a consent agreement. It's just, there's something here they're telling us to consider.
right, and we don't have an
Just to
amount.
have
Okay.
information that we're considering.
So we'll come, so Article 8, we want to know more about. Article 9, this one is around the removing the building department and the sticker fund from revolving accounts and moving them into the general fund, which is already in the operating budget. If you recall, that's already been done in the operating budget.
So for us to do that,
yes.
as I understand it, the stickers had to be used for like hazardous waste. That money had to be used for a particular purpose.
Well, remember though, we amended that, passed a town meeting bylaw to expand, and we could spend it on recycling initiatives
Right? So if
beyond
it's in the
hazardous
bylaw,
waste.
can we do this?
Um,
If those funds are designated to be used in a certain way in the bylaw, can we just do this?
That's a good question. We'd need to check, I guess, with council on this. I'm assuming Ryan's done that, but I don't know that for a fact, so.
Hi, it's Kim.
Oh, hi, Kim.
You can, every year, if you have a revolving fund, in order to spend from it, you have to appropriate and give an amount on it. So when you close it, whatever's left over goes into general fund. There probably won't be a whole lot left in the sticker fund because it's kind of, it gets a lot of money in January, but the way some of the recycling works now on the bills, we're not getting, used to be you get a lot of revenue when you pay the bills out. Now there's credits going with different ones. So it's been kind of tight on how it's running. So it is better operable to be in the operating budget. But in order to stop a revolving fund, you just don't vote you don't vote an amount to spend from it, because all your other ones, as you know, from revolving every year, you have to vote it in order to spend up to that certain amount. And you are restricted on what you spend it on when you vote it that way. But when you close it, whatever's remaining left closes back to the general fund and closes to free cash.
So there isn't a bylaw.
There is a mass general law that follows how you appropriate and how you start and how you end them. And so basically coming in the operating is going to be a wash, or hopefully whatever is more, if you're getting money from it, will be able to be spent on, anything in the town. But it's not, it's increasing the budget, but it's being offset with local receipts. So you're not raising taxation, bringing it in.
Kim, I don't think that's answering the question, though. The question is, do we have a bylaw that mandates a sticker fund, and that the sticker fund be used for a particular purpose?
Any revolving fund, if it's a bylaw, he'd have to check on it, but any revolving fund has to have which all yours do is what it can be spent on. You can't spend if you're
Right,
without
Kim.
appropriation on anything different than what is specified in that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll just check on the bylaw question.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Then the salary and wage table, this would be presented and discussed at town meeting, because this is a significant change. And then again, those changes are included in the current proposed FY24 operating budget.
Yeah.
But it has to be voted on first. So of course, if this doesn't pass, then it changes the operating budget, but this would be voted on prior to the discussion of the
That makes
budget.
sense.
Yeah.
Normally it's done afterwards. Yeah, okay.
And then Article 11, this is the one that the FinCom discussed with Ryan and Kim last night and agreed it could be removed because we are not going to have these we're not going to have this situation this year. And this is about those last minute budget transfers.
Oh, okay.
And then Article 12, we have these two specific bills from should have been paid in FY '22. And so those need to be voted on. And this requires a 9/10 vote
Whoa.
at
that's
town meeting.
almost unanimous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these people haven't gotten their bills since last year.
They haven't been paid.
haven't been
You mean, yeah. Kim, can you address that? I think there was some discussion last night at FinCom, but I didn't quite follow it about whether these have been paid and this is somehow an accounting.
You're on mute, Kim.
Sorry. They actually were submitted after the fiscal year. So we didn't even get the bills for legal till after July 15th. We got them in the fall and pretty recently. So it was not on our part that we didn't pay a bill we didn't have or didn't have appropriation. We did not get the bills. So
And have they been paid?
they
since
cannot be
you said?
paid. They cannot be paid once you pass.
Until we have town meeting approve it.
So it's
Okay.
agreed upon, you have, you notify them that they can't be paid. It's a prior year fiscal bill and it has to go onto a town meeting floor. So
Okay,
you have to wait to a special town meeting if it had been something in the fall and it hits it, or to your annual town meeting. And it has to be a 9/10 vote.
got that. And so the legal bills, is this our own town council?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm sure they understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what happens if it doesn't get 9/10?
They don't get paid.
What does that mean?
They're not happy.
They're not
Well, and they
happy.
get their, it's usually put in the paper and it's noticed, and it with towns is if you are a vendor with a municipality, you have to, department scramble. And if you have a bill, you need to get it into the town prior to July 15th in order to have it paid.
And they have
And
all.
legal
people should know about
counsel would
this.
know that, so they've missed the deadline, then it has to go
Yeah.
this way, because you've now had, with the money that was left over and turned back has gone to free cash, so you're turning around, that's why you're using your free cash usually for it, because it would have been in last year's budget, and now you're paying it this year. So it's
Okay.
every municipality, there are legal, they should know it. Any vendor we deal with knows they have to get a bill in.
Yeah.
Or you tell us, we can't get you the bill, but we're getting them out and we have a certain amount out, and you encumber the funds. And if you encumber the funds, then they can be paid in the next year. So these
Okay.
were not.
Well, we
submitted.
understand, we understand what this one is, and whoever's making the presentation will have to make a
Probably be-
Right.
strong appeal. Yeah. Article 13. So last night at the FinCom meeting, there was discussion about 13 and 14 because they are obviously related. And so as Ryan notes in the red, it could be combined with 14 or stay separately for transparency. So I think the feeling of the FinCom was that keep it separate, but that the presentation cover both of them at the same time. And then you'd have to go vote on each one separately, obviously voting on free cash
Is
first.
there any reason not to do Article 13 after 14?
No, I actually said
That's
they
where
had
it
it.
was originally, was after 13, and the discussion, right, that we had last night that Kim brought up was that it really should come first to make sure that the free cash is available for the operating budget.
If this was voted down, then you would have to increase your operating budget and raise more.
Uh-huh.
So if you had your operating first at the lower amount, if it was say 28 million to, 250, and you really need 28.5, you'd have to cut whatever free cash you were voting out of your whole operating. So you want to make sure that they want to do the first one and reduce the tax rate with the free cash. And if they say yes, then you vote the lesser, you vote your lesser amount of your operating budget. If for some reason they
Okay.
said, no, we don't want to do it, you'd have to increase the Article 14, raise
Right.
the rate and do a larger amount.
Okay,
But
David?
Kim, we've been doing budgets for hundreds of years. This is the first time I've ever seen it presented this way. What changed? We
What do
always
you,
just voted the budget.
with the free cash amount in there.
What's
What is
changed?
this?
right,
What is this?
Um,
It's hard to tell. I'm sorry, Kim, wait 1 second. Reduce the tax rate, free cash for operating. What
This is a separate vote on how much free cash would be applied to the operating budget.
That's that?
Yeah, but we've never done that.
We're
We
not-
always present operating budget and it has
Okay,
X
could I-
amount of free cash.
So this isn't reducing the tax rate. This is,
Well, it's reducing it if you,
but-
right, but it's not.
and what it would be if
not
you
a
didn't use
warrant
any free.
article that's reducing the tax rate. It's just
No,
it's moving where we're doing the money.
yeah, but we've never done, what has changed to make us approach it this way?
This way, yeah.
The reason is you're close to your levy capacity with the Concord Regional High School $600,000 increase in it. So to take care of that and bring
We're
you
not in
in it.
threat of,
And
no,
to
we're not,
keep your tax bill at the 3.6 is if you raise the full amount, your percentage of what you're going up per tax bill is going to go up as well. So it was a funding source to be done to offset it. So if
Aren't-
you don't do it, you're going to raise more, so your tax bill won't go
of
up.
course, but
Right, yeah.
Every year
not
we transfer.
hitting the levy limit, are we?
No.
Nowhere close to
Um,
that.
Well, no, you have 3 over and above, but it's on the other sideline. It's basically to keep your budget within your 269, or now it'll be closer, a little bit more with the 30,000, not a lot. But no,
But
you have plenty
we-
of levy capacity over your ceiling. It's the,
Yeah.
get my head right. It's
I don't-
it's
I
the
don't-
it's
So-
the amount that each taxpayer will pay that's gonna be raised on taxes. So if you're using free cash, you're gonna charge them less. If you
If we look
don't
at
do
Article
this,
14, bullet number 2 says use of free cash will be included in this article. So it's already combined.
Then what do you do?
Right, as Travis is pointing out, yeah, and David, that,
Think we-
so let's, I think we
Yeah.
want to take another look at this between now and April 11th and figure out if we can do this as one article.
We've always
we've
done
done
it
it
as
in
one
the
article.
past,
We've
yeah.
Never done it as two.
well, you've done it with
articles.
other funding sources, on the when you've used like your ambulance money or things like that. He can combine if he wants. It's usually a vote separate, because the way it's reported after to DOR, it's a separate, your normal free cash, the way it goes is on a different part of your, it's on your B2, but there's a page on the recap that you actually have to put, did you use free cash to reduce your operating budget?
Right,
Because
Right.
it's not usually done. I would agree with you with that. It's not a common practice all the time to do.
Right.
But
okay.
We've never done. it.
So, all right, so we'll,
Use it as-
let's,
I think let's just say, let's combine it.
yeah.
Let's-
You're asking for trouble if
I
you
don't, I
get.
don't think we need
we-
town hall to deal with what needs to be done from a reporting perspective later.
Right.
We've always had this combined.
Yeah, but I think it really
think it's
more
not being
confusing than
Yeah.
transparent.
Because the bullet number 2 under Article 14 says use of free cash will be included.
Right.
So we should get
All
the
right, so
legal
our-
review, but I think I
Yeah.
agree with
if you
these.
talk to legal counsel, whichever way, that's,
So
but
we're in agreement. We want this to be a single article for the FY 24 operating budget, as we've done in the past.
Yep.
Okay. The capital equipment, Article 15,
Small.
those are the small items, which I guess we don't have a list of, do we yet?
Well, we have
Um,
this CapEx budget.
It's the CapEx budget, right? Because none of those were proposed to go up for bonding, right? That was all
Yes.
coming out of capital.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the only separate one is the Corey Auditorium lighting.
Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah,
So can we take this moment to ask this gentleman who's been waiting patiently whether
Aye.
the 280,000 is still a good number for the,
auditorium lighting. You want to come on up to the, and I apologize, I don't remember your name from before, but if you'd introduce yourself again, that would be great.
So Jeremy Burley, 47 Hart Farm
Hi,
Road,
Jeremy.
BEHRLE. It is a good number. You know, we just, we had a very successful 7th grade play. We had a lot of parents that were involved, volunteers. We had returning 8th graders. We had SLOC. We put in some lights from my basement to run the show, and it was very successful. And now the drama club is gearing up for their Wizard of Oz, which will be their second production this year. Going specifically to your question, there have been five prizes that have been associated with this. There are 3 that get the job done. Of those, the $280,000 is the least amount that gets the complete job done. The other ones were piecemeal of, let's look at, the whole system is failing in multiple ways, right? Concurrently, unfortunately. But what are the most problematic areas? So we've had numbers that were 330. We've been working with a vendor over the last several months since the fall to get down to two numbers, the 309K and the 280K. The difference between the two is that the 309K is addressing the spotlights in the back that somebody would hand operate. And so we're leaving those pieces out. So the 280 is the amount that would take care of the entire system. And then the other two was $150,000 and $75,000. Those two numbers are, again, piecemeal, kicking most of it down the road, going to have to come back next year or the year after for more money because the system's not going to make it. So the 280 gets the whole job done. We do have a PO from a vendor. It does include the Massachusetts Higher Education Consortium pricing. And then I guess there's some questions on whether or not, depending on the funding sources that get used, whether or not it would need to be bid out or for
Would have to be bid out, right? Or I guess you've done the bidding
Not
out.
if it's from a state bidder.
So yeah, so with the MHEC contract pricing, I understand that we can purchase off of that. I don't know the logistics about that. But that's currently what it's under. But then if it includes ARPA funds, which have a federal component, there may be at least two bids that have to happen. So
Jeremy, will that vendor hold that PO quote past town meeting? Because we can't obviously.
yeah, I mean, there's a date in this, I think that they are guaranteeing it for a certain period of time. So the answer is,
Beyond,
yeah.
After May 8th. Yeah.
so 280 is a good number.
It is a good number.
Okay.
So the small
Okay.
caps, let's go back to this other stuff.
Mm.
We used to have small
By
caps.
the way, we've got 3 more minutes on this and then I'd like to end and we can pick it up again on the 11th.
Small caps used to be baked into the operating budget, sort of a line item, right? 280 and it had a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it was
And
2,000
now-
here and 5,000 there and.
Now we've got, a dump truck and,
Oh, no, sorry. No, that's long, dump trucks are long-term caps.
no, I understand, but the way it's presented here, I don't understand I don't know what I'm looking at.
Capital equipment small is.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, small. And
I think it was smaller than the 280 because I think it's the capital. I think it's
It's
the
the
list.
rest
we're
of the
gonna-
capital.
I think it's the
Yeah,
list. that we're
yeah,
gonna-
it's an FY24 for the capital plan.
Yeah.
I should know this cold, but I don't remember. Jerry, you might remember. Do we vote the CapEx separately from the, we have a
Yes.
separate vote on the capital budget? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But we're not going to this time because this dump truck is actually in our operating budget. I mean,
No.
there's nothing here that identifies it as being different than that, right? It's calculated into these numbers and then that 347,000 is in the operating budget.
Thanks. It's sort of confusing the way it's presented, I agree. Oh, because you got an operating,
No, that was on the capital.
I don't,
Truck is shown on the capital plan
right.
and
of your
Yeah.
capital plan, but all of these things are absorbed in the operating budget.
Oh, well, I guess what I mean, if you go back to page 16 of the packet,
Yeah.
you've got ATM budget request 33,991, blah, 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 34, I don't know, some number, 34 million. we'll call it. And then separately, you've got a capital plan, 347. That's all those items, including the 180 for the dump truck. And then you've got warrant articles, which is the, the CPC stuff and the, I don't know if CPC, it's the lighting and whatever else.
Greeno Dam.
Reno Dam, yeah.
I mean,
So it is
no, Greeno
separately.
Barn. Greeno Barn.
Reno Barn, you're right.
Yeah.
It is separately enumerated.
It is, the small stuff is $347,000.
And it is its own thing. It would be the list of.
And that's the small
it would be
That's
the-
Article 15.
Article 15.
And that's
I wanted to
okay.
beat the dead horse, but the $347,000 has the $180,000 dump truck in it.
No, we agree, but
Okay.
the 347 is the capital plan, not the operating plan.
Okay,
Yeah,
That's the difference. So we,
where does that,
That's Article
means-
15.
Article
well,
15.
see, that's what I don't quite understand, because the free cash is all mishmashed in.
It says items listed in the current budget version will be listed here. So the items listed that will be listed there will be the 60,000 for the cruiser, 15 for the replacement hose, 50 for IT upgrades, 180 for the dump truck,
okay.
and 42.
Right, but I'm with Nathan on free cash, whether you use free, like paying for it. You got the capital plan, the operating plan, and then these extra extraordinary items in the warrants. Then you have tax bill, ARPA, CPC, and free cash. You got four, and state money, I guess. You got 5 sources of revenue, which is kind of summarized here.
Yes.
But we agreed we would combine 13 and 14 to use free cash for the operating budget.
Okay.
But doesn't the capital, this 347 also uses free cash?
It doesn't matter.
We don't have a separate thing about it.
I see what you're,
It's,
Don't know how it's getting paid for.
Right, it doesn't show where.
it doesn't say,
From.
it does say, well, I guess it. I don't.
think,
this
I
is
don't think
finished.
it's.
All right, so we need
yeah.
some more work on this.
We need more work. This is like a
Okay.
weird, like I'm in like some bizarro world right
Okay, I would like to wrap this up, but we only have,
We just have,
well, the only Article 17 is been taken out because this is going to be ARPA funded.
Yep.
This is the accounting
Okay,
stuff.
good,
right.
yeah.
Reno barn demolition, we've
Yep.
discussed this, that's in for 200,000, it's its own article.
Yep.
The next two are CPA
Yep.
requests, which we've heard about.
Yep.
Then Article 21 is the new proposal around the senior
yes.
tax exemption that Joan
costs about
spearheaded, and it's gonna be,
33 or $4,000 is what I recall.
yeah.
Yep.
And
From
so
that
that's
order.
Article 21. Article 22, we heard from Peggy. This is the one she about not doing voter registration on Saturdays.
Yep.
The scenic bylaw one, that's
Yep.
straightforward. The opt-in stretch code, we need to decide.
Sure.
And we,
Sorry, Madam Chair, if you don't mind me reading Ryan's recommendation for that?
sure.
Okay, sure. So for
So
the
we're on the Article 24.
Article 24 was specialized stretch code opt-in bylaw. So he writes, I am sorry I cannot be there in person to make this recommendation or offer my opinion on the opt-in stretch code warrant article. I am happy to field more calls or questions about the matter. I certainly support the ESC, the town's sustainability approaches, and all the efforts to reduce our carbon footprint. I believe the opt-in stretch code is something the town should consider support. However, in consultation with John Mativier, I think it makes more sense to continue to advertise and provide information about these changes so residents and other interested parties have time to offer input and express concerns. As a new code, I also think time will continue to improve the code's application. John agrees that more time would benefit our understanding of the new requirements and what they are demanding of local code enforcement. Again, this is not to say I don't support the measure. I just believe the fall town meeting provides the opportunity for continued discussion, analysis from other adopting towns, and a better chance at town approval. John has given his permission to share his opinion and is willing to discuss this with any board member.
That sounds
Okay.
about right.
So the idea would be
Yeah,
to.
it's a
propose it
huge
fall
meeting.
town
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think something that it's not urgent.
Um,
The stretch code was just changed,
Yeah.
right, in 2023.
Yeah.
I don't know what the difference is between the original stretch code, and I looked all over the web for it. I couldn't find a document that said,
Compare
here's
the
the
two.
original, here's the new 2023 stretch code, and here's the opt-in.
Yeah.
Um,
It would be
it-
helpful
it-
to have the extra time to get that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Debbie probably could tell you that, or probably has something she can find. Hi,
Yeah, we
Debbie.
don't need
she's
it
on the
now,
call,
though.
But maybe we could look at that at our next April 11th meeting, or at least have it as background material before then. I would recommend we not decide tonight whether or not to include this in the
Right.
May town meeting, but we've heard the recommendation from the town administrator and we can decide on the 11th. And then the last one is what was discussed at our last meeting, last Wednesday, about the, that Aubrey presented about the personnel bylaw and removing the personnel board references, if you recall.
Yep.
So,
Yes.
I don't think we have to discuss this. any
And
further tonight.
referencing the personnel policy
Correct.
handbook.
Right. But removing all,
Yeah.
since that's being disbanded. Okay, I would like us to move ahead then on our agenda. I see that Julie is here, our town planner. Thank you, Julie. Why don't you come on up to the table so you can join us. And
Safety.
the purpose of this next section of the agenda is to hear from Julie and discuss the various details of a study scope for both the fire station and the police station. We are not making a decision tonight as select board members, but this is an opportunity to learn more about what's currently in the scope and then make additions or suggestions or whatever we would like to offer for input. So thanks, Julie, for being here. And then I think if you have something to share, we could put that up too for both folks here in the room and those online to be able to follow along.
Hi, thank you for having me. So I do have a document that I can share if I can.
Great.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different than the document that was in your packet because I've received some feedback, which I've incorporated into some comments on this side.
Sorry, and feedback from
Right.
where?
It's a little different than the version in your packet because I've received some feedback from Jeff Freeman and Tom Bellata and
Oh, okay.
Lee
Great.
Stories. So what I saw my role as being in this process is sort of like listening. I attended a lot of public safety facilities meetings, just trying to listen to the conversations and understand the different points of view and where people are coming from, and then kind of compile what I heard into one document in one place. And I have sort of a mathematical approach to this. And typically when I write RFPs where I'm trying to figure out what to solve for, my experience with RFPs, you get out what you put in, right? So the more specific you can be and the more guidance you can give and the more information you can provide about the studies that have been done, things that are known, the better outcome you're going to get. So if also from my planning perspective and background, I did a couple site visits and site walks with some of you and the Public Safety Facilities Committee. And the conversations were all happening without like visuals, right? We were out on the site, so that's a visual, but without mapping and understanding what's on the ground. And so for me as a planner, I try to build things from the ground up and understand all the layers. And then, working with Ryan and the Public Safety Facilities Task Force on the strategy, kind of bring the two together, right? So anyway, I tried to kind of reflect a little bit of that in this document. But I started with, the highlights are sort of some decision points, and let me zoom in a little bit, seems a little bit.
As you're zooming in, is there a way we could, so I've seen the TBA study, I've seen the task force memo to the select board. I haven't seen any of the other ones. Would we be able to get a copy of those?
Yeah, so I'm working on gathering them, and I actually have found a lot of plans and maps and studies that have been done. So I'm trying to compile it all in one place, and I can definitely share what I have.
Okay, thanks.
So, I put a caveat at the beginning that the scoping here might be more than what I heard the budget might be. So we might need to kind of think about this more strategically and whittle down, or maybe think about it in a bigger picture. Then, just starting with like listing the documentation. So there's a lot of work has been done over the years. And I compiled kind of a series of maps, which I can show you at some point if that's of interest to kind of, you probably are all aware of this, but I wasn't in from a planner's perspective. I found it very interesting that there's been a lot of discussions about how to reconfigure the town facilities and how to use the Conant land and use the police station land and even use Center Park and use the library over the years. Very interesting. So I think that all of that iconography could be really helpful to a consultant coming in, trying to understand like the ethos of Carlisle and what's already been discussed and what's been thrown out and what's maybe like resurfaced and should be revisited. So I'm talking a lot, but anyway, so I did break it up into two different categories, primary documentation to review and secondary documentation to review. And that's obviously up for discussion, how you want to do that.
And when you say for review, this would be a review by whoever it is that we've hired to do the.
Right. So
study.
they're not just starting from
Yeah.
like scratch, right?
Right.
They're just building on the knowledge that we already have here in
Right.
town.
Yeah, I just have a question about what you classified as secondary. Were these documents that were sort of unsolicited and brought in from, because they're both obviously residents?
So I can't speak for the Adams Beasley parking analysis, though, and I've seen Mike Silver's, sort of massing analysis, but I'm not sure.
Some massing in.
So Jeff is here. He can Probably describe that better than I can, but, essentially it's not really a concept design. It's more just like looking at things in bulk and putting them on a site. And I don't want to discredit his work at all, because I think he did a lot of, detailed analysis that went into it.
I'm going to just guess that Eric Adams's parking analysis was done when they redid that building and they had to do a study.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was on.
Yeah.
And
That's
they had to read it, which-
right in town,
Yeah.
across from the library.
Oh, that building.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Historic
Yeah,
building.
and he had to,
His building, yeah,
He
yeah.
did a parking analysis
I
showing
see.
how off-street parking
I see.
was affected.
Right,
yeah.
right.
That's why it's second.
So,
And
yeah,
That's what
would you
triggered
think
my
that would be
question about the
useful to
document.
have in this review?
Provide
Oh.
input as to what's missing or anything, because I haven't seen the
Right.
documents.
Project and not necessarily
course.
broad-based, but you
But
could
it's a
look
piece
at
of
it.
data.
Yeah.
I think Julie's
See
point
if
is
it's-
it's
For
a
background.
secondary piece of data.
Yeah, okay.
But still could have some useful information in it, and useful ideas. So I didn't want to leave it out entirely.
Hmm.
So, and like Nathan pointed out, you don't know what you're missing if you haven't seen what I have. So, I'll definitely provide that. And
We have a neat document that actually lists like, so I looked through the TBA and there's like parking that's there, but I couldn't find anything where it said, this is how many parking spaces are needed.
yeah,
So
Right.
it's like, do we know what our needs are?
you're like jumping ahead. I was wondering the same thing.
DA didn't do that.
So just scrolling down, then like like taking it from the like math problem perspective, right? What are the constants? So it sounded like the Public Safety Facilities Committee decided that we would use the existing land that we have. And
Was
then,
added. This is an add, this,
sorry, I'm right here.
yeah.
Constance,
Yeah, under
right in the middle there.
using the existing sites and then working with the buildings that we have, whether we remodel them, add an annex, or add on to them in some way, not a complete rebuild. And then determining what are the space needs and what are the parking needs. And I know that some of the space needs were based on some thoughts from prior staff, and maybe some older studies. And so my question would be, is that thinking still reflective of what's wanted and needed now? Or should it be updated and looked at again? And similarly with the parking needs, like, do we know what our utilization is? And do we agree with the prior studies and recommendations? And are these things that we want to try to pin down before we put out the RFP? Or should we seek a consultant who can make a recommendation for us?
On the first one about space needs, you're talking both about police and fire.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I thought the task force had identified space needs in its work. Is that, I'm looking at Jerry, who's on the task force. Is that correct, Jerry? I don't know if you want to come up and maybe so that you can be heard by everybody.
The Stu Roberts report.
Hang on one sec till you get to the,
Introduce yourself.
Oh, Larry Lerman, 218 Stern Street, member of the Public Facilities Task Force. Stu Roberts analyzed the fire department space needs and to some extent the police station space needs. And came up with a plan that involves lots of square feet, probably more than we need. So that's kind of a starting point.
but there hasn't been a subsequent review of that based on the decision not to build a new building, but to use, okay, so
His-
that would be what we would,
His analysis is, this is what we need, not what do we build to make that happen?
yeah, okay,
So I would say that report should be added to that list at the top.
Yeah.
In the list,
There-
yeah.
It is. Robertson Johnson says.
See, she's editing as we go along, Nathan,
and-
yeah.
Yes,
And
sorry.
and I want to say TBA also, as you know, did a space needs thing and they thought we needed more space than we said to design for because we didn't have the room on the site to put that space in there, so
Right.
that's been done a couple of times, but I don't know that it shouldn't be done again, just with the idea that we wouldn't have the same constraints. So,
Yes, the constraints have changed and very possibly the needs have changed.
yes,
Mm.
yes,
Even from that, the first Stu Roberts analysis, you're saying?
Well, certainly from the
Certainly
TBA
the
analysis.
TBA, yeah. Okay,
and we have a new chief, and she is sort of knowledgeable about accreditation and
mm-hmm,
requirements, so I would
Mhm. that's true. She
boy,
just
be
went through
really
that.
loath
Yeah.
to jam a plan down her throat without her having a chance
Right,
to
Right.
weigh in.
good point. Yeah, because she just went through that in her current town. Okay. On the parking needs, it seems to me, at least for the police station, that's critical. We don't really know that.
Well,
Or,
and the parking needs are kind of cyclical because when shifts change and people are coming and going, there's
right,
a very different demand than kind of during the average.
There's a peak load.
Yes.
It's like any, it's
like a workplace, I guess.
drum
right?
buffer rope. It's normal, you're very familiar with that, I'm sure. So I think to expand on that, and we did earmark some money for it. The parking, its requirement, and then the available places to go have to be assessed, right? There's
Evaluated.
parking, there's different classes of parking. There's parking that probably must be easily accessible to the police station, like cruiser parking. And then there's employee parking that could possibly be located elsewhere and people walk to their cars, right? So you can't do it without looking at, and maybe this is part of the Beasley analysis. Where else can you park? Can you park over here?
Well,
Can you park-
there's a third kind of parking too, and that's visitor parking.
Right, and even,
Mhm.
and that also doesn't maybe have to be right there, so. At least for PD, right?
Yeah.
But I guess also, yeah, and then I assume, I haven't ever thought about it, but I assume fire station parking for the on-call people has to be right there, right? They gotta get right there and get right in.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, and for the fire department, since we've been using the fire department building for other purposes besides the fire department, like the COA uses it for some of their functions.
Mhm.
They have different parking requirements.
Yeah. And some of them is drive-through as well.
Right, right.
So, yeah.
So are you thinking that a consultant would review the existing studies that we have for both of these things and like ratify and maybe amend? Or, make a recommendation based on what we've been told in the past, or just like start fresh?
I think ratify.
We shouldn't start fresh because a lot of work has been pointed out repeatedly. A lot of work's been done. So, but I like your approach. I mean, I like the math problem idea. So to me, it's a similar, like, you start with requirements, right? So requirements comes out of your committee study, right, Jerry?
I think so.
Right, and then you have constraints, like public land, wetlands, blah, blah, blah. And then you look at what's been done. You look at research been done. I mean, that's what I hope that a consultant or consultants, it may not be the same ones, are able to assimilate.
Yeah.
Certainly, we don't want to throw away all that work that's been
Mhm.
done on the
Right.
police station. There's a lot of good work there, but it was, I believe, and correct me, it was operating under a constraint that we are removing, which is to stay within the building envelope, right?
Yeah.
So it's useful, but its constraint, its ground rules were different than we're now imposing.
It did add a Sally port,
Yeah.
so it didn't stay within it.
No, it didn't.
The TBA did.
Well, it
Okay.
it
It had a Sally port and it
expanded,
had a garage in the back.
And one,
Yes, but,
it expanded out into the back at the expense of some parking.
Mhm.
yeah,
But it did increase the,
And there was a
Okay.
plan for a separate garage building with storage and other things.
Right.
That I think got dropped.
That's right, because we use the old Sally Port for the cells in the booking area. Right, forgotten about that. So the question that is on here,
So,
sorry, go ahead.
Just so I understand, kind of follow the chain of events, because I wasn't, I guess, a party to all that, but we had the TBA plan that was set, it was, bid for construction, and then now we have new information that we need different things, and that's why it's changing?
No, I wouldn't say that we need new and different things. The garage was added because there was extra storage that could not be accommodated in the current building, and they couldn't put anything beyond this, the new Sally Port, because that's where the septic is. And then they have wetland issues, so they kind of got crunched. And so if we didn't have the same requirements for parking, there might be more room to put some other things.
Yeah, I guess my question is in terms of something, one of the people in town brought up or asked about, which was, didn't you have a set of plans and why aren't we moving forward? And I just wanted to kind of understand, the mechanism of why are we where we are? Why couldn't we use those plans? And I'm asking, I don't know the answer.
I think we certainly could, right? We certainly could use those plans because they were okay. It was going to go to town meeting. It was an article, correct me if I'm wrong, it was an article, but we decided to pull it because it seemed like probably didn't have the support for it at the time.
Okay.
But I think that, I think that what's come up is, well, if we're going to expand the parking, could we also expand the building more, which would mean let's redesign the building because
Well,
now we have more parking.
I would state that a little different. That plan was okay then. Whether it's okay now depends on additional variables. Number one, we have a new police chief. There may be new requirements to satisfy as far as state rules go. And if we ease some of the constraints on the property, like the setback from the street, that opens up a lot more options for what can be done on that site. That isn't to say that the TBA plan may be the best thing to do, but I think we should look at other options.
Yeah, but there's an awful lot of things that would need to be worked out. So for instance, if we're going to change the setback, we would need to make sure that we could change the zoning,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so wouldn't we want to do that before we hired a company to come in and say, oh, well, if we had all these things, what would the building look like?
Well, but if according to this, the feasibility study presents a couple options. One option might be, if the setback constraints are relaxed, what could we do on the site? And another option might be, if we have to live with the existing rules, what can we do at the site? And maybe the TBA solution is what we can do with the site.
Well, there was another option of going a little bit further behind
Well,
the cemetery, but still not encroaching on the wetlands, right?
but I mean, to my mind, that's the purpose of this study, is to look at those options. Maybe it's the case that the TBA plan that we came up with is the best solution. But maybe it's not anymore. And I think we need to look at that. TBA design is an architectural design that's suitable for going out to bid. The feasibility study is just kind of a broad brushstroke picture that would allow us to identify what we want an architect to really draw up. And if the TBA plan is the way we're going to go, then we already have that, and maybe it needs to be modified because of code changes, but it could be substantially the same.
I think we have to have an outside agent look at it and say, yeah, this is still a good plan, or no, this could be tweaked, or no, I think you should start over again.
And I think it gets back to what you were saying is, like, so what are we putting in? What are we asking them to do?
Right. Yeah, and I would say from like my experience, I think that identifying what all the different constraints are and kind of giving them some sort of idea of where where it's possible to add on or where the site like could accommodate more is a good place to start. And then if they need to push those boundaries for any reason, they need to tell us like how they're going to do it. Right. So if it's wetlands replication, or if it's changing the zoning, or if just to accommodate an additional 5 feet into the setback or something like that. But I think we need to kind of give them the parameters and then to work within that we think are, you know, quote unquote feasible based on what we know about the regulations in town, the politics in town, the priorities in town, right? And then, but not constrict them too much from dreaming as designers and architects, right? So if they have an idea that's out of the box or that we haven't thought of, they need to identify for us like how they think they can actually achieve it.
And I wouldn't want to go and try to do rezoning without a really spectacular idea. I think it would, you know.
It's a big
I go
push.
through that problem if you don't need it, or the idea is really not so hot and, you know, you don't want to upset everybody for not enough value. But if it's really a super hot idea, maybe then, you know, people will think it's, you know, worth it.
Doing.
This process, though, we went through it before, the board or the town went through it before years ago, and thinking about it, but you're saying it was too narrow because it required you to work with the existing structure and existing zoning, and now we're kind of broadening it. Is that the gist of this?
I think the original plan, correct me if I'm wrong, but the original plan was going to be okay, or else we never would have put it on the warrant article.
Yeah.
So the original plan, it was a compromise, no doubt, it was a compromise. And so I think what Jerry's saying is maybe there's some of those compromises we could get back now that we're starting it again.
It was, yeah, it wasn't pulled, it wasn't not done because it wasn't good. It came in, the bids came twice as high, which.
They weren't twice as high. We asked for 189,000 and then it was going to be,
No.
sorry,
800,000.
800 and, sorry, yeah, 800
To get your
And-
decimal points.
and yeah, sorry. And change 890,000, and then it came for 1.2.
1.2, 1.3.
I mean, when you think about it now, it seems like
Yeah.
crazy. like-
Yeah.
Well, there were two reasons. One was the cost and people were concerned that the master plan was kind of in the works and how would this fit in with the
Mhm.
master plan?
And now it's
We
gonna
were gonna,
cost
and maybe we might do a combo
Combined, yeah,
public safety.
yeah,
fire and police safety building.
yeah.
So, right, so it could be that the plan is fine, but I think that parking is definitely an item, and so once you introduce parking, again, it gets back to, we've talked about this a lot. We have to introduce a review of this parking and how one might move from here to there, right? And I think we put a
Just
little
to be
money in
clear,
there.
When you say this parking.
I mean, sorry, town hall. I'm
Town
not being
hall
specific.
parking lot.
The town hall parking lot, and I guess again, you get to requirements and constraints. So requirements include, you know, the traffic for town hall, including the surge of town hall is when council on aging has events where lots of people come in.
And voting.
And yeah, and voting, actually probably maybe less than it used to be because of the way we
Mail-in
vote
and
now,
voting
but
was-
early voting.
gotten better.
but if you overlay the, say, I'll call it commuter traffic of police officers' personal vehicles, if that's an option, then you also have to look at what constraints are we imposing? In other words, are we interested in some capital improvement of the lot? You know, changing it, grading it, making more capacity? I mean, somehow, at least in my thought, that should be evaluated.
You know, if we have no municipal parking area where if we ever got any micro transportation, you know, like a shuttle,
Mhm.
crosstown shuttle or something, where people could park their cars and then get on the,
That from Furniture Center Park.
no, no, it's from Concord Center to Carlisle or Carlisle Center,
Right,
to Concord
right.
Center, or wherever. But the thing is, we have no place to gather people
right, leave their cars and
So
get
we
on
can't
the
even,
transport.
not only do we have no public transportation, but we really have no possibility to have any kind of it because there's no place unless you go door to door.
I just want to say what I said last time was, it's just massive scope creep, right? And so a building by its square foot has a number of parking spaces that you need to have. And so I think identifying how many parking spaces we need is fairly simple. And then we just need to figure out, okay, where can we put those in?
Well, I'd like to slightly disagree with that. I'm concerned that we would implement a parking solution for the police station and or the fire station that would interfere with some future plan to put in some other kind of parking. So to undertake that without understanding what the town's future needs might be, we might wind up shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. But this has been going on for so long, it's almost like analysis paralysis. Of course, there's something else that could happen. If it turns out that there's something different we could do with that parking to add on, replacing parking isn't nearly as expensive as the building, right? So it's not like we can't change it in the future if we want to. It's just a
Yes.
flat paved area.
It's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
But we're spending that hundreds of thousands of dollars now. Every day we delay this
It's an order of
project.
magnitude, right?
Yeah.
But I agree with that. I would just say that we have to include the parking analysis. I agree with you. What do we need? Not what the size building requires, but what does the commuting police force need in peak times? And maybe you said it or when you said it, is where are you gonna put those extra people? Assuming there's not enough, because we already know there's not enough space there. Where else are we gonna put them? And some level, not analysis paralysis, but some level of review of what's available and what could be used. Is it the Center Park parking lot? Is it the library parking lot? Is it here? And if it's here, we're missing some efficiency.
Correct.
Yeah, but well, even walking is okay. They're policemen. They ought to be able to walk. And I want to just say,
Good enough to walk to, yes. Sir.
if it was not done correctly the first time and we redo it, it's not analysis paralysis. It's making sure you do it right.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it wasn't done correctly the first time though.
Well, maybe didn't include enough variables. If there was a parking surge that wasn't accounted for, because they were going to build sheds and extend Sally's and things, and didn't address that. I haven't seen it addressed in the old study. Needs to be.
So do
I
we
would-
want to, she has a highlighted question here. Have we answered that? For the select board, does it make sense to ask for recommendations on space needs and parking from the consultant, or do we want to pin these things down for them first?
Well, when we talk about pinning them down, we talked about the new police chief weighing in, right? And we have a town planner who could weigh in based on parking ratios. I mean, how much beyond that do we
the
want
task
to do?
force that's done a lot of work on it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I think we've done a lot or have the ability internally to do a lot of that without spending
The
extra.
needs, I agree. The solution, though.
Well, that's what we want
They should.
the study
Right.
for, right, to come up with the solutions.
Are you doing this? You're writing a SOW from this? Is that your
Yeah.
intention?
So,
A SOW stands for
Work.
scope of work. Okay.
yeah. I
I want to just go,
Also, so it sounds like you would be not, well, because, she's a busy lady too. She's been catching up on a lot of other things that have to be done in town. And so the question is, would you feel that you would have the capacity to
Yeah.
just give
so,
us the rule of thumb?
I was hoping to have a little bit more of this ready before tonight. I am busy, but I do have recently done a lot of work with parking in my prior town. And I would be happy to try to help kind of pin this down and even maybe make some recommendations.
Okay.
great.
So
So,
in the end, we haven't answered a single one of your questions.
no, we did. We did.
No, I
We
think
Said that we're going to ask her to,
That's pretty good.
that she's going to help pin this down for them first.
That's what
We're not
we're
gonna
gonna say now that we have the resources down. Yeah.
It sounded to me like with space needs, you'd want some input from the new police chief, and maybe start with the TBA study and kind of go from there. And then with parking needs, I could help with that. And I also did want to say that I think that there's two different types of requirements, right? So there's zoning requirements, but then there's actual demand and utilization. And so if they're not well aligned, then we need to kind of figure out a strategy for that. So in my experience, I've seen that town facilities can get waivers from certain different zoning requirements. But yeah, that remains to be seen, right? So that's an analysis that I could do and work with the police department and the fire department and try to understand that better.
Yeah, I think I'm just in a little bit different page than some people here, just so not tonight to discuss it. But I don't honestly think we need to have parking for the peak. That peak is a very short period of time. They could easily park somewhere else and walk over.
Well, and maybe when you research a little bit about the Eric Adams, and obviously he's now on the planning board,
Mhm.
it'd probably be very helpful. But we talked about that at the zoning board of appeals relative to that, his commercial use in town and, you know, the peak demands and the different thoughts. And then the board determined what was appropriate parking and how they could use the public municipal spaces that are available for much of their requirement.
Yeah, but if they're using it at the same time that there's a peak somewhere else, now we got a problem.
Well, I would just like to, I guess, add on to the looking at our town parking, not because I'm trying to go, into a much larger scope of work, but I think this is relevant, the sort of peak parking or when do we have very little parking and when is there plenty of parking, to understand that, including the town hall parking, and not just be looking at the police station in isolation.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shall we move on to the next part of your memo? Yeah.
So this is still a work in progress. I was trying to kind of show in an organized format what the different constraints are. I'm also working on putting together like some mapping that will kind of show these things. And so they're not 100% perfect or accurate or complete. And then there are some additional constraints I was thinking about that I should add to this. I was working on the mapping a lot today, and I kind of thought, oh, I should have put that. I should look at that. And so it's a work in progress. But I did want to kind of outline it all in one place, just right up front for whoever the consultant ends up being. So there'd be a couple different ways to look at it. Spreadsheet, the mapping, and then obviously like site visits. And if there's anything on here or anything that's not on here that should be, please let me know.
So the fire department driveway is part of the historic district? It's interesting.
Small piece of it, yeah.
Uh-huh.
That means it has to be cobblestone?
Uh-huh.
And then the entirety of the police.
Which means that
Right.
the exterior would have to look like
Right.
colonial style, like it.
Or something, all right.
That's the.
And then the,
It just means that whatever we do has to be approved by HISCOM.
right,
We can't overrule them. We have to go to the state.
right.
Yeah.
And what's,
I just,
Or-
we're talking,
Go ahead.
sorry, the police. It's in the, because it's in
historic
the-
district?
because
right.
it's in the district, because the building itself is not a historic building.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to.
that's okay.
I-
And then the wetlands,
Mhm.
CVPs are,
Certified vernal pools.
ah,
And there are 3 or 4 of them on the Conant land property. And they come with their own setbacks and different
Right.
species and requirements.
right,
Uh-huh. In fact, we should be able to see them right now.
okay, right. Boy, they're loud.
All you have to do is-
Yeah. And is that the section that's sort of between town hall and the police station? Is that the wetlands area you're talking about?
Do you want me to show you a map?
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure.
Boy,
You have another 10 minutes?
Okay.
Great.
I didn't want to like distract too much from the conversation,
Yeah.
but I was working on, let me just,
While you're looking it up, what does horse main mean?
Oh, just like the way that the sewage works against gravity.
Okay, not having
The
this
slope goes
police
the wrong
force.
way, so
Yeah,
it's-
exactly. It's the force uphill.
No,
Um,
septic is higher than the effluent, so you have to pump it.
so I just put together this little like compilation of maps that I found. And just a few disclaimers. So I was having a lot of fun with it. I know you didn't hire me to have fun, but it needs a lot of refinement. It's very rough. Ryan hasn't seen it. Maps are meant for visual representation only. And there's a lot of old school methodology. I like retaught myself how to use ArcMap after 20 years. So anyway, I wanted to show you. So in 1975, there was a plan drawn up that shows the DPW site on the Conant land. As well as a maintenance
Being moved to
yard.
the Conant land.
Yeah, and a connection, looks like you
Ah.
can even drive across it. Now, I think this might have predated the Wetlands Protection Act. So I'm not 100% sure on that. And then the Lowell Street site was the fire department at the time, and it was proposed to have an expansion to the fire department and then also include the police headquarters.
What were the?
That's
That
on
was
the
the
wrong, that's on the
public
wrong
safety
side of the
building.
cemetery though, isn't it?
Yeah, there's the
The cemetery?
cemetery.
Other
Yeah,
side of the
police
cemetery.
station
Yeah,
is
so here's
now-
the cemetery.
So is the fire department, the police department now where Kelly is? Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm
The
looking at the
fire-
road the wrong way.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Sorry, I should have oriented you. I'm used to looking at maps. And what I want to show, like, with doing these is I geo-reference them to our parcels and then,
I don't know. what
like, I'm working on putting other GIS layers on so we can kind of see how things fit into their context. And so these other layers that you see on here that aren't labeled, like, these are non-community water sources, and this is like tier 1, zone 1 wellhead protection. And then this bigger circle is zone 2. That's this map. And then I found a few maps that were undated that show different studies of the Conant land. So the first one identifies kind of a 4-acre area of I guess, upland. This green line here is the existing trails layer that we have in GIS. And again, the other layers that I mentioned. that are-
One means it's not wetland.
Yep. And then in this
The
plan.
circle in the, where you just were, that's the rotary.
Um,
Down, no,
Yeah.
what's down here, yeah, that's the rotary. I'm just getting oriented here.
Blue circles are wellheads, right?
right, Yep.
Okay,
The uplands 4 acres.
There's
goes
Lowell.
through a pond, so.
Right. Yeah, and so this is the new DEP wetlands layer, right? So things, I don't know when these maps were drawn. They were
Uh-huh.
updated, so I don't know how old the information is, but
yeah.
and then in this study here, they have Lowell Street being used for DPW and fire. And then they had Gleason being the town offices and the library.
Huh.
And then in this iteration over here,
Yeah, because that's true, that they were the.
okay, this is helpful, like information, it's interesting information for me being new to the town.
Yeah.
Then this one over here shows all of the town facilities, DPW, fire, police, and the town offices being located on the Conant property. In different iterations with also another access point off of Lowell Street.
Hmm.
And then another iteration here has DPW and fire on the Conant land.
So these look like different
These
proposals
different
around
here.
the same time, right?
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely drawn by the same person, like the plans are all the same.
They
Like
must have had a study.
format. Yeah,
Component, future housing. Wow.
Yeah.
yeah. And then this one, there's
Yes.
this here just labeled future housing, and then Lowell Street's the police. Center Park would be the fire. And then there's a building down here on School Street that was going to be the town offices.
Huh.
Oh.
There you go. We don't need a study.
And then
This is an.
this is the 1982 fire station plan. And what's helpful for me on this one is just seeing the topography and then also like there's ledge identified here. And so when we're trying to identify additional constraints, like some of these old maps can be really helpful.
And that is where it is now, the fire station, is that about?
Yep.
what it is now?
Yeah, and so the light gray are like the existing buildings.
I think
When was it built, the fire station?
Around 1980.
Okay,
See
so
what-
this is where they put it.
Yeah, I think this was the plan for when it was constructed.
Were that light gray, was that on this plan? or-
No, it's
you
GIS. I'm
separated
putting
from the
everything
GIS.
Together, yeah.
That's what I wanted
Um,
to establish. That's,
Ah,
that, okay.
Yeah,
This plan did not have the buildings on it. It
no,
was just a topo map, really.
Right.
And the thing
Okay, and-
labeled proposed well and proposed septic system is where the well and septic system really are.
actually did go.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
um.
Huh.
And then this is a more recent map, plan of the fire station, when they put in the, communications tower.
Mm.
And it shows like a very current wetlands delineation, which is also really helpful. And then also the topo.
Mhm.
And then this next one's really ugly. It didn't kind of come out the way I wanted it to, but basically I put the town hall plan and the fire plan together and the transparency didn't work out that great, but so just looking at it all in context of each other.
Big blue circle on this one is the wellhead.
Yeah,
For,
so this is another non-community water source. So I'm assuming it means it's for town hall.
That's the town hall.
Yeah.
that's the town hall water.
Yeah.
And did the blue wetlands part, has the wetlands shrunk time, or is it just maybe anomalies in the overlay?
So actually it's in some areas probably bigger. So I think, so this wetlands layer is from the DEP and they do them based on like aerial flyover and vegetation and all sorts of things. But then when applicants go to the Conservation Commission, they actually have to have them delineated. And in many cases, they're actually much bigger. And so I think this line right here is a wetlands delineation.
Mm.
And so these are all things that like with more time and working with consultants, we can actually digitize. So we can create our own wetlands layer that would be more accurate and specific than the state's layer. But I didn't have time to do that today. So, okay,
Okay.
That's great.
that's, oh, and then I did have one for the police department too. And this is very hard to look at, but if you zoom in, it's very clear and you can see where the stone walls are. You can see where the wetlands delineation is back here. And so it's helpful to me, but
What's the gray stuff? The parking?
yeah, it
road?
didn't come through great on the
Yeah,
scan, but it's the
exactly.
parking.
And as I recall, we tried to put that garage. Do you remember, Jerry? Did we, we didn't put it any closer to the wetlands than,
It's right under where it says Carlisle Police Department.
yeah.
So you could build anywhere on that black square? Basically, or, I mean, you have your setback off the blue thing. Does that imply you can build anywhere in that sort of polygon? No, from
Yeah, that,
property line too.
that dash,
That's the property line.
that's, yeah.
Yeah, so this,
That's the property.
and then the red lines that you see, those are that's our parcel layer. And so they're not perfectly aligned. That's,
But the buildable space, whether it's a parking lot or a building, is how far setback in from that boundary?
On Lowell?
And any,
No, yeah.
I think it's the gray spot. You're looking at that left.
Shaded gray?
well, the shaded gray is
It's
pavement,
asphalt.
right?
yeah, this is all pavement. And so what I would do for the
40 feet.
RFP is actually put setbacks, zoning setbacks. I'd put the historic district
that
on
would
here. I mean,
Yeah.
really, like, it's hard to,
It's a pretty big chunk.
anything that happens on this
Right
site
at
will
the
have
edge
to.
on the- You could get a special permit.
David,
Yeah, one at a time, guys.
Anything that happens on this site would have to, almost anything, I think would have to go to the Conservation Commission to being within 100 feet of the wetlands. So, saying that you can develop on the paved areas is maybe true to some degree, but because it's already disturbed, but that is not for you to decide.
the other thing that we shouldn't forget, by the way, is the septic, because as I recall, for our last iteration, septic was already considered to be inadequate by the BOH because we had more lockers in there, because it's based on number
I
of
think it
lockers.
was recently determined to be okay.
Was it? Okay, well, I just wanted to double check because as I recall, we had some
Got them.
kerfluffle about that.
Yeah. And she's got them.
Oh, does she? Okay, yes, okay,
Yes.
connect,
The
So it's
well and
looking-
septic
right,
capacity.
okay. Yeah, there it
Looking
is.
Back at this here, so you have the vernal pools, as part of the Conant, potential issue. I think also probably want to talk to the historical commission,
Mhm.
the historic commission, because there's, I believe there's some Native American artifacts in there. And so we would want to make sure that those were protected.
Yep.
Right.
And of course, Conscom, obviously, they would need to approve anything. Historic commission would also have to approve anything.
Okay. Any more that we want to give as input tonight?
Do you have enough?
I think so. Yeah, I think I
To-
have enough feedback to
Okay.
kind of make some more progress on this. I guess I would just like ask you one last thing, like, so I had kind of figured out, what are the constants? What are the questions? And then what do we want to solve or design for? And so feedback on that, like, would be helpful.
The solve or design for
Yeah.
part. Yeah.
Does this seem like the right list?
Yeah, part of this is hard for us to answer without having looked at some of the documents.
Okay,
I think, I mean, I would like to see, first of all, I'd like to look at the TDA again. But I have never seen Chief Sorrows's concept plan, for instance.
Yeah, nor have I.
Presented it, didn't they present it?
And
They might have, but I don't remember it, so, I'd like to see it again.
Is there more, Jerry, than,
I mean, they've talked about it, I've heard about it, but I don't
So-
think I've ever seen it.
But one-page drawing.
Yeah, that's fine, but I'd still like to see it.
One of the things that isn't mentioned here explicitly, in terms of looking at the fire department, the idea of a separate building
Mhm.
is a constraint imposed by code requirements and sprinklers
Yes.
and things. So we don't want somebody to say, well, just build an addition onto the building.
Right.
We've already determined that has all kinds of problems,
You can't do that.
right?
Well, you can,
You
but
can.
it costs you
Then it-
more for nothing in a
right,
way.
it kicks it,
I mean,
for both means you have to.
Oh, you have to
the
upgrade
building.
everything. Right.
I think it's helpful for this board to think about when you're giving Julie direction, because,
Yeah,
I don't
would trigger
particularly want to, my own opinions, I don't want to send the architects or planners off doing stuff that
more.
we know that the
I'm not-
town won't have support to do. So I think the
Yeah.
more we can narrow this
Hmm.
focus so that, if we're gonna move this forward, it should be something where we're not wasting time and money and resources.
I agree.
Right.
So if we can kind of narrow that, what I'm suggesting is maybe we can give Julie a little bit more guidance on this, because I think without it, it could be turned loose and we could come back and say, oh, look, we really want to do this huge thing, when we may not have the political support or the, finances.
Well,
I think
Okay.
it gets back to seeing those documents, I think, really.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is when you're talking about, I think it was the space needs.
The next
where you
part,
were- where you were
solve
talking about
design
the
for.
constant- Yeah, solve design for.
Yeah.
I would like us not to, it's like every department obviously wants everything right there. But
Mm,
perhaps there are things that are there, like, we talk about this parking could be expanded a bit, and COA has that trailer there all the time. Does that trailer really need to be there all the time? It's using up parking space.
Department of Health, actually.
Oh, Department of Health, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no, they
a-
probably
a-
don't.
or vans, could they be parked somewhere else? And the police department, in the winter
Yes.
time, do they need to have their motorcycle there? They're not gonna drive it. So, maybe there's someplace else where we can put things and you rotate them in as we need them, rather than just assume,
you have
oh,
to have
it's a
space.
fire department thing,
Yeah.
it needs to be on fire department property, or police thing, it needs to be on police department property, or town hall. I mean, never seen that trailer move. But I'm
No,
not here
it's
during
just
the
a
day.
storage. It's
Yeah.
really just a storage thing. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Maybe in some
During
huge.
COVID.
Yeah.
During COVID.
So then it could come
wasn't
here,
ro-
it could come here and take a
No, no.
parking space then.
No,
right?
that's where they got the masks out of. That's where the things were stored. That were no, it never moved.
So anyway, it's
Yeah.
just making sure that we're wisely using the space that we have.
That's a very good
Right.
point.
Yes.
A-
agreed.
But the other thing is, and I've they're not. We should not be storing anything that we're not using. So if it's an antique fire truck and they, I don't know, maybe they want to play with it, but it shouldn't be stored on town property because it's just, you just don't have, sell it.
It would be more.
Let
particularly
some
if we're-
hobbyists play
or
with it.
Rent a space off-site.
Or if you want to keep it then, and if you're not, it's in your budget to find a place to store it.
rather than
Eventually.
build an annex because we need
Because we
more
need-
space to be able to have the antique fire
Exactly.
truck.
So the space needs,
undercover,
I would
yeah.
say in the things, the space needs have to be for the actively used equipment and
Right,
whatever.
right.
And the other thing that, and I know we discussed this a lot with during the TBA thing, there was I think it came out, but just making sure that we're using all town resources because there was a desire to have the large room at the police station. and it
For
couldn't be
training,
behind
yeah.
the locked door
Yes,
for
yes.
firearm safety course, which was done in this room, but it was more convenient to do it there. I
Yes.
think we're at the point where we're so constrained, convenience might be something that
It has to
you
go.
know, has
That's,
has a definition that we need to determine.
I think that's a very valid point.
And it sounds like we ought to have another go round at this. Right, once you've done,
No, I
when
think we
you've
just
done
need to
some
know-
more, Julie, this has been a good
But this-
start.
We are homing in.
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
some of the,
Um,
this idea of convenience is a very valid one.
Mhm.
Nathan, I think it's very important. Because, like we've redone this room to make it a multi-purpose room.
Right.
So that a lot of people can use it. So there's really no reason not to have it as a classroom.
Right.
If they need it. They don't have to have their own classroom, unless then they're willing to open their classroom up for the COA to do mahjong. But the fire department
They're on
is
board.
actually, they've been doing haircuts in there and,
Right.
all kinds of
The
things.
chorus has been rehearsing
So I
through
guess they have
COVID
to-
in there. Yeah,
Their trucks out.
right,
Okay.
right.
No, so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good start.
Yep.
And thank you, Julie, for getting us going on this and for the additional work you're have time to do.
Before you leave, just to steal a little of Aubrey's thunder. Thank you for your work on the DHCD plan to get us compliant.
Have we scared you away from ever coming back and presenting anything?
No, no, not at all. No.
She likes it,
I
Jill.
thought this was pretty, these are pretty nice. So,
See, look at that. You can tell she had some fun. That's good. That's good. All right, thanks a lot. And thank you, Jerry.
Yep, thanks, Jane.
Okay, let us move to the town administrator's report, which Aubrey is going to provide to us.
So I've been
Thank you,
told
Aubrey.
just to really just do my section for tonight. So I'll do that, but I'll have, there's one more section I do want to point out. But for mine, so we do have some positions open right now, still with the DPW driver labor position. There's a part-time police officer position that's not in this report, but that's been opened just recently. And also still the COAHS director position. We are putting some interviews together for the director position and the labor position. So those are coming up in the next week. And with contract negotiations, we are negotiating with Chief Colleen Dunbar. So that's really exciting. And a lot of thanks has to go to the police chief screening committee. I obviously worked with you all extensively, and it was really great to see how committed the committee was. And so just want to thank you all for that hard work and everybody on that committee.
You too.
Oh, thanks. And then we're working on a new three-year contract with Chief Saros. And we're also working with the dispatchers on their union with their new contract. I just wanted to also point out or give the staff recognition, even though that's not my section, but I still think it's really important. I want to thank Peggy and Gretchen from the town clerk's office, as well as Jen Gibbons on their work on the town website. So we announced that recently of the new design, and actually like to just share it just while we're here, just really quickly to just show what that looks like. So for those who haven't been on it in the last week or so, this is the new page. Far more welcoming,
Yeah.
There's new static buttons on the left for what's the most popular buttons that should be there. It's absolutely just so much. What would you say?
Shows your
The
priorities.
assessor, yeah. I'm sure Brian was thrilled to see
Yeah,
that up
sure.
there.
I'm sorry.
News and events is all a lot cleaner now.
There's more key ones.
So the calendar you click on and
The
it goes-
calendar looks so much nicer. It's a lot cleaner.
Find a calendar.
Yes, it's a lot nicer.
Right on the front page.
A lot more modern. Help Center. This will be updated as, as we see fit. Continue down Carlisle spotlights. So talks about the newsletter, City of the Woods, about the town, some photos. So,
Picture of cranberry bog,
oh yeah,
because it was loaded with cranberry.
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is the new site. I think we're still, confirming the navigation, but we're getting there with that. So that's a lot cleaner. Boards and committees is now A through Z. So that's a lot easier.
Huh.
Living and visiting tab will kind of touch anything else that hasn't been touched upon. And then I just gonna move this for myself real quick.
Aubrey, who does this, our web work? Is this a contract we have?
Yes,
with,
Civic Plus
Civic?
manages this. And folks can either talk to myself, Jen Gibbons, or Gretchen in the town clerk's office on any updates. The two of them are really managing any major updates, but I can coordinate that with them. So any suggestions, we're definitely open to that, but it looks so much nicer and it's just a lot cleaner, easier to find everything.
But
So
do you update it, meaning meetings and things, or do you have to go to that firm to then put those? things up?
so Gretchen and Jen do that, and Peggy, they manage those parts of it. So, but any sort of, and actually really a lot of the editing of the web page itself can be done by us. There's very little that we can't do. And so I had experience, in Shirley managing that website. It was a different editing platform, but it was still Civic Plus. And so I could basically manage almost everything. There's just a couple style options that they have to do in the back end, but for the most part, we can change what we need on here and update as needed.
Did they do the design?
They did, with a lot of work with Peggy, Gretchen, and Jen. They really worked really hard on getting it to have this nice look, a nice updated color, just a lot more modern.
Mm.
Do wherever we've sent out links, are the links still valid?
They should all still be valid. If there's any issues, just let us know, but they should all be. So it's just the navigation to everything has changed.
Yeah.
Or there's a
but
bunch of backslashes that
where-
might not get you.
Right, but where it's housed should still be the same. And this is more of an update of a look
Right.
rather than changing how we get everywhere. So that should not be an issue. But I do know that that's a feature, is to look for broken links and making sure that everything's all set.
Great.
That's great. And then Aubrey,
Would you like me to make the motion?
yeah, we
The
have
ride.
about the ride.
Oh, yeah,
We
so
do
there is
need to
that.
do
Brent
that, right?
Turner Society ride, so.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion, but I'm gonna make a slightly different one. I'm gonna add something to the end of it. So I move to approve the National Brain Tumor Society (NBTS) request to travel on a portion of the streets of the town of Carlisle on May 21st, 2023, provided they coordinate with the public safety departments.
Yep, that used to
May
be
I have a
standard
second?
part of
Yeah.
our motions for
We
that.
have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries.
I don't know if you're aware of it, but we used to have a policy about, like if they put arrows and things that they have to be removable and they can't. put up
Oh,
with paint
okay.
And things like that. So,
Are you the one that's going to be kind of the liaison person to the ride, folks? Or
Jen,
It might be
maybe Jen?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they've been working with Jen with the update with the map and everything.
Yeah,
And work with
So-
them. I know that we did reach out to Chief Fong already, so
yeah.
I'm sure that that's complete.
And maybe just,
Many years.
yeah,
before.
No, okay.
I think so.
as I recall, yeah, it's a little better maps.
At the end of this, so are you, we're not going to cover any of the rest of it. We can just read it.
Yeah.
We probably have all read it ahead of time. I want to just point out though, under the dates of interest, what we don't have on here, but it is on our calendar, is a Tuesday, May 9th, select board meeting is the second Tuesday of the month. And I know we have the town meeting the night before, Monday, but there are a number of agenda items we've talked about trying to get to that are sort of higher level conversations, such as the boards and committees and which of those should be disbanded or whatever the right word is, how we want to handle those going into FY '24, and some other topics like that. So unless people are really opposed to it, I think it'd be good to have that meeting on Tuesday, the 9th.
Assuming we're not on the second night of town meeting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think it looks to me like we wouldn't have a second night of town meeting, given what we have on the agenda, but right, yeah.
I already had it in my calendar because I have it,
Yeah,
automatically.
right, second and fourth Tuesdays, but is that workable for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we'll just add, if you don't have it in your calendar, just put that in that we're gonna meet on the 9th. And then the future agenda, if you go just below that, which in the packet's page 66. So we would be adding what we took off tonight, the Middlesex County Retirement System. That would go onto this agenda on the 11th. Yeah, we'd have to figure out.
Anybody other than me have questions about that?
Yeah, I mean, I have questions, but the outcome is predetermined.
You want to give up?
I'm okay with it.
Forego seeing them?
I'm fine with it.
Did you want
We
to?
could forego that if everyone's thinks that.
I think all the towns have voted.
Yeah, I mean, most of the towns around us have voted for
Yeah,
it.
but I just didn't
Voted for
understand.
what?
This retirement system, the COLA discussion, the retiree COLA increase.
Yeah, what I couldn't figure out from that was what is the cost to Carlisle? for
Yeah,
it?
yes. Well, there was that.
It would be great to know what
They could
that
just
is.
give us that number.
Well, there were a number of things. Then they talked about the base of 18,000 is, so it was only, so my question was, that's all that everybody gets is 18,000, or do some people get more and they're only raising it, I mean, there were.
I agree with you. If they come in, we're gonna grill them and ask them a zillion questions. And I would too. But at the end, we're gonna end up voting for it because everybody voted for it, right? We don't assume.
Yeah, it would just be good to know what the impact on our budget is.
No, it would be, yeah. But we could check, we could ask.
We could find that
Right.
out without having them come make a presentation.
Those were my questions too. That was the same.
Mhm.
You know, I just calculated it like, but again, I assumed, we only have 55 employees, so it's allocated that way, but I didn't know for sure.
Mhm.
So
Wasn't clear was 3% of what?
do you want to just ask those questions and then not have the presentation to save time on our?
We'll just ask Ryan to give us.
I think we've important things to do.
Yeah.
We just need the number. Yeah, I agree.
So why don't we,
Should know.
if you can note that down, Aubrey, that'd be great. So the impact on what would it cost us? And sort of what are the bases for the figures? Yeah. And then we could go ahead and vote on it the next meeting, but without having to have a presentation, if we have that information ahead of time. Yeah, so at the next meeting, we do need to, we didn't vote on, in terms of our select board, whether or not we support the warrant articles. So we are going to need to go through those and
And-
take those votes. So we're going to have to be, fairly
When
disciplined.
do we see the actual language of the warrant articles now? Because,
I think, it's going to town council this week.
okay, so then
So
we would
should
have that.
that, yeah. For the
Um,
immediate, and we'll get it ahead of time at the end of next week before the
Okay.
meeting on the
Because
11th.
as I recall, there was a commitment to have, to the town moderator at least, to have the warrants be much more carefully crafted so that people would understand
The
what
meaning,
what the meaning, what
the
the warrant
intent, or, yeah.
was actually, what the motion was gonna look like. You know,
I personally think if looking at the agenda, I would add more time for the discussion about the warrant articles and everything.
Yeah,
and
I
maybe
think-
move the master plan implementation to after town meeting.
Yeah, and I can tell you probably Julie would
That's-
appreciate.
We're trying to,
Oh, geez, she's
cram.
right there.
Yeah,
we're trying to cram an awful lot
Yeah.
into this meeting and it's not the type of thing we should say we're out of time.
Yeah.
So I would move that until after town meeting and
Unless, Julie, do you think there's some urgent matter that we should be looking at for the master plan implementation that can't wait till after town meeting? Okay.
and it doesn't, it won't, affect, or maybe there's no longer the proposal to have some kind of a formal public launch event. Is that still, being considered? Okay, so this would. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The document's a living document. Having a kickoff event as part of the bigger public event for one.
Okay, so it could wait till after town meeting, then that's great. Okay, good suggestion, Nathan. All right,
Homework,
so-
energy.
so that's the,
So can I?
and the
ask-
MOU for the energy is really so that because they need this to be done so that they can have that company at the Sustainability Day on April 22nd. So that's
see.
why that
That's the-
MOU is in there, the Homeworks Energy MOU, yeah.
Yeah, but
this
that's
is-
April 22nd, so again, that.
Right, it has to happen on the 11th, yeah.
Oh, it has to happen on the 11th?
Yeah, because the April 22nd is the Earth Day. And we don't have another meeting.
Oh, that's
until the
right. That's,
28th.
this is.
This is April.
God.
so is this
Yeah.
to replace the broker or is this to select? the
It's
carrier?
to allow, it's to have an understanding with Homeworks that they will provide, let me see if I've had this right, that they'll have a booth at the Sustainability Day and people will be able to sign up for the sort of the equivalent of a mass save energy audit, but it's more extensive, but they aren't, nobody would be required to use them, but they would be there on site, explaining what they offer and people would be able to sign up to have those
Okay,
audits.
so this is simply a marketing thing at Old Home Day that we're.
Yes, that we're
Okay.
agreeing to.
It's not-
Yeah.
Not Old Home Day. it's,
No,
uh,
Sustainability Day.
Sustainability Day.
Yeah,
I wish they
Um,
would do that for home batteries, because I'm in the market. Would be nice if we could get some sort of a
Oh, me-
company.
for EVs? Or
No,
what
no,
battery?
for,
Oh.
for solar panels.
Ah, yeah. All right. So any other thoughts about the agenda on the 11th? We'll add more
The
time for the
executive
warrants.
session is for
I'm sorry, what?
executive session 6.
That is for a personnel matter, that we've been discussing.
Okay,
And hopefully we'll conclude
all
the
right.
executive session.
That's on the 11th.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
So it's a
Right.
6 o'clock start.
I have another commitment. So
at
I'm gonna
6.
try to dial in for part of the meeting.
Okay.
Fortunately.
For the
Yeah.
entire meeting?
For probably much of it, but I'm gonna do my best based on the scheduling of how it plays out to try and be present as much of it as I can.
And
At least the
if,
finance part will.
That's what I was thinking. Definitely be part of that
so, I mean, for the warrants.
for the warrant.
Vote, yeah, so if there's a better way to time this for you to be able to participate, let us know.
Okay.
Okay.
Later, but
Actually, earlier would be
Earlier?
earlier.
do we need an hour for the executive session matter?
I don't know, but that's just what we put it in for. We'll know better
So
next
we
week.
We could start at
could-
6:30 with the, what's the earliest you can make?
Yes, Nathan.
On the 11th. April 11th. could get here by 5:30.
Okay, so we could have executive at 6, and if it's a half an hour, open the regular meeting at 6:30.
Start early for the regular meeting
Town meeting, like,
at the near the beginning.
Don't work it around me. Just do
Well, no, you need to
whatever,
be quiet.
whatever works. I'm gonna do my best.
Okay,
You know what happens is we assign you to be the presenter of all the.
Of
warrant-
all the ones.
right, when you're not here. You know what, actually, but speaking of that, it would be helpful, if people, if there was a warrant article that you thought you ought to, or maybe want to present, to send that information to Ryan. We don't have to decide it now, but I think most of these are actually done by somebody else, but
Yeah, there's none.
Sign me up for
Yeah.
that one.
somebody else one. Okay, all right, the minutes, let's take a quick look at the minutes that we have in our,
I sent a,
yeah, I'm pretty sure.
edit.
And did I see, Aubrey, that Jen sent
He sent some
Yes.
updated set of minutes?
Included Kate's,
She
Yeah.
included my edit.
Okay,
It's a
so,
very minor one.
so the one in the packet has been
move that-
amended.
The select board vote to approve the March 14th, 2023 regular meeting minutes as presented tonight.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes have been approved. And that
10 minutes for community.
gets us to community input. Is there anyone, we no longer have any residents in person here, but is there anyone virtually that would like to offer comment?
I move
right.
we adjourn.
Seeing none, say that again, Nathan.
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and Aubrey, thank you very much for being here and taking us through things. And everybody have a good evening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.